What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Game Over Greggy Show. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer/seducer, Nick Scarpino.
You use 2 toothbrushes when you brush your teeth?
Yeah, I'm just brushing my teeth.
It's a famous vine now of a boy brushing his teeth.
But with 2? I think
you really got to get back there. When
he has a passion for oral health.
Yeah. I get that.
Over here, the pride of Long Island, Colin Moriarty.
Go Islanders.
And then over here, the pure one, Tim Gettys.
Let Tim host.
How you guys doing?
Great.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Episode 99 of the Game Over Greggy Show.
Damn it, you had to draw attention to it.
Yeah.
Because so many people have been tweeting, are you going to do something for episode 100? And we're like, we should.
Yeah.
You know what we should do?
We really should.
We should film a podcast for episode 100.
I like that.
Oh.
See what I'm saying? Like a special podcast where all 4 of us sit together and talk about 4 different topics.
Do we go back to
the
the kitchen? Do we go back and sit on the floor?
We could.
Yeah.
I don't know what we do with the table. We have to make Kevin move the table by himself.
Kevin can make it work. He just moves the
We
camera.
can totally do it.
Put an onboard mic. We'll just talking to the onboard mic on the camera.
We have long HDMI cables.
There you go. See, you big wuss.
Episode 100 is a milestone, but I don't feel like it's the most important milestone. Remember what we used to do? When we used to do Podcast Beyond,
The
we
50s.
didn't really celebrate episode 100. We did a 100th episode. I wasn't even on that episode.
Yeah.
I was on episode 98, 99, I think, and then I wasn't invited to 100.
Yeah.
No big deal.
Only the important people.
Right.
allowed.
When we got to 200 and then 300 and then they just did 400, well, those became bigger and bigger
Right.
deals. So I feel like it shows a tad bit of modesty to say, like, you know what? Nah. We're
I like the
gonna.
way
to
you're
Bernie
thinking about
Sanders
it.
it.
Let's take the shit off of us fucking up and not planning things
Yeah.
right. And
Yeah.
Yeah. 100's not a big
There's
deal
too
at
many
all.
other things to worry about. Because at the end, I mean, it's an interesting milestone, but it just means that we've done it for 100 weeks.
Yeah.
I say we celebrate some random
Episode 105.
104 would be 2
138.
years.
You want to do 104? Have we done it every week? Have we ever missed a week?
That's what
Nope.
I'm trying to figure out. No,
Never
I think
missed
we
a
have,
week.
No.
Never missed a week. So,
So 104 would be 2-year anniversary.
Let's do it for 104.
Let's carve pumpkins.
Oh, I'd love to carve
No,
pumpkin.
I
Can we
don't
do the
like
thing
that.
where you take the pumpkin seeds and then cook them, like roast them? Like salt and
Are we
roast?
fucking savages? Of course we're going to do that.
I'm in. I'm
I'm so sick of pumpkins.
Fuck off.
What? You only get it for 1.5 months a year.
It's just why does pumpkin have to be in it? I know we've talked about this.
'Cause it's delicious and
ad
we love it.
nauseum, but it's why does it have to be in everything?
Because it's delicious and awesome.
It's fine. Pumpkins are just fine. They're not. Why are we obsessed with the pumpkin? What about all the other gourds? You don't like a little bit of spaghetti squash?
I love
I
a good
love spaghetti
acorn
squash.
squash. I just had some acorn squash cooked up the other day. Delicious.
I
No
just-
one's knocking the acorn squash around here, Colin. I'll be dead in the ground before I let that
The
go
ground.
and fuck up.
I
with
feel
my
like
God.
I picture the cornucopia. You know what I'm talking about? Like
Oh, yeah.
that's what
yeah.
I picture. Not the cornucopia
Yeah.
from the Hunger Games, but the cornucopia, the horn and the food coming out.
Right.
You got an apple and you got a corn cob and all these kinds of things.
Lots of things.
Way more festive and interesting because there's a variety of things in it.
Yeah, but the
The
pumpkins
pumpkin,
have
fuck
faces.
the pumpkin. Fuck
you don't
the
put
pumpkin.
you don't put faces on the squash.
You could. Who's
That's
stopping you?
weird.
Put a little
You could.
googly eyes on the squash and you got yourself a little toy.
You can carve a
All
squash.
right, now I'm with you.
You'd easy carve
Fuck
squash.
the pumpkin. I'm sick of that shit.
If you didn't know, this is the Game Over Greggy Show. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table. Each bring a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, head over to patreon.com/kindafunny where you can toss us a few bucks and get every episode early. If you have no bucks to toss, no big deal. Head over to kindafunny.com. Go to youtube.com/kindafunny. Go to any of the Kinda Funny websites where we break up the show topic by topic, day by day, until we post the entire thing the following Friday. Tim,
Yeah.
you are the topic. You're having a good day, and I think I know how this all comes
I'm
together.
having a goddamn great day. Last night, a little thing called the Star Wars The Force Awakens trailer came out. The full trailer, the final trailer. I'm sure we'll get a couple commercials and
Sure.
shit, 30-second spots.
Taco Bell
coming out.
things too. They'll have little.
There'll be
things.
some Taco Bell stuff
Yeah.
for sure. But this is the last trailer we're getting for this movie. Now, everyone's talking about it. It might feel like, oh, we don't need to hear this shit. Bullshit. We can never stop talking about this trailer. There's so much to say about this trailer. You
guys
guys
went and
talked
put-
about it on Colin Greg Live a little bit. We put up a video over on Kinda Funny, youtube.com/kindafunny, where we break down kind of secrets and Easter eggs and a bunch
Did
of
you
random
catch
stuff
the
in
Easter
trailer.
egg of it's Han Solo hugging Princess Leia?
Yeah.
A lot of people missed
Not-
that.
Yeah,
Not
no,
so much
actually,
an
we
Easter
did
egg.
see that. Yeah.
That was just an actual full frame with both of their faces clearly visible.
Yeah.
Just
Quite
letting you
the
know.
Easter
Just
egg.
letting you know.
I think that
Easter
maybe
I'm just trying to help out and contribute.
No, I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
And we made a bunch of predictions and stuff, so you guys should definitely check that out. But I was looking at the comments, a lot of people are like, oh, I want you guys to actually just discuss the trailer. So that's what we're going to do.
Here you go. You're welcome.
Today. Internet. deal
Share
with
this
it.
video so it's
And
worth
a
our
lot of
goddamn
people want to
time.
hear Colin's thoughts.
Yeah, people
Duh.
are really looking forward to Colin's
The trailer
thoughts
was
on this.
terrible. It was a terrible trailer. Oh my god, it was a great trailer. Like, I teared up a little bit when I watched
God
it.
damn it, I did too. That's the thing.
I couldn't help it. I got goosebumps when it started, and when the Lucasfilm Limited logo came up, I actually went full blown goosebump on it. It's a great trailer. I don't need to see any more. I think a lot of people are. I think we're not. Tim's point. I don't think we're gonna see much more of this.
I mean, they said we're not.
Yeah, I mean, like with the exception of the TV spots, which will. I mean, I feel like even this trailer used a couple of shots of footage that we have seen before. So I think that they're starting to like the famous now John Boyega like confused guy look.
He was confused a lot in this trailer.
And he's very
even the
sweaty.
last shot with him with the lightsaber. He's like, I don't know what this thing is in my hand. Oh shit, this guy's got one too.
Yeah. So there's a lot to. I mean, I don't want to unpack it on a frame by frame basis because I don't. That's fun to do, but I don't really even want to get into it like that.
We already did it in the other video.
Exactly. And also I just feel like I don't want to pick it apart to the extent like my brother, for instance, who listens to the show, I think, loves this shit so much. Like not only Star Wars, but just anything where he'll like look for script leaks and all. Like he loves that shit. He loves it. He like gets down and dirty with that kind of stuff.
Did he see the Easter egg that was Darth Vader's helmet all smushed up?
Again,
like a bad pumpkin.
Just I hate to keep going back to this, Greg. Your definition of Easter egg, I think, might be a little off. I think it might be a little off. That was a 13-second shot of the helmet that we've seen 3 times before.
Now, my favorite shot to the point of these quick shots, my favorite shot in the trailer is actually when Kylo Ren has his hand next to that guy's face or whatever, and he's like the guy's like kind of freaking out or whatever. I was like, there's something unsettling about this particular Sith Lord, presumably that I don't even feel like Vader had, and that Maul certainly didn't have, and Dooku certainly didn't have. Maul could have had if they ever developed the character. Now, that shot really got me excited. The shots of Phasma got me excited. There's a lot of characters. The other cool shot that I really liked that I don't know that people are really going into too much, and we had seen pictures of it before, are the stormtroopers lined up in that very fascist looking shot with the big banners that look like Nazi banners, basically. I mean, Lucas, not that he's involved in this, was always obsessed with Nazi imagery. I mean, that was the fascist, clean, sharp edges.
Oh yeah,
simple logos, all that kind of stuff. I mean, that was what he was always about, and that's why the Empire soldiers are called stormtroopers. But I like that shot because they are talking during that shot, but they muddle the sound, and I don't think that that's the way it's going to be in the movie. Like he's giving a speech, and I'm really interested in. I've always been interested in that shot and that scene since it was shown in kind of stills. I think in Entertainment Weekly at some point or something, where I'm like, what is this scene, and what are they doing, and what are they preparing for, and what are they saying to each other? Because I'm just fascinated by the political dynamic between the two sides and how it's changed since the second Death Star was destroyed. And they go into that in Aftermath, which I heard is a terrible book, so I don't want to read it. But I'm just interested in the political dynamic between these two structures and how they still exist and and does the rebellion now have the edge? I don't really understand.
Yeah, that's what I want to know because we're presumably years into the future at this point, right?
30 years.
They confirmed that, right? Obviously, with Han Solo looking the way he is, still looking good though. But it's interesting. Tim pointed out a couple things to me that I hadn't noticed in that shot specifically before, which there's different types of stormtroopers in it. A few of which have like tanks on their back flamethrowers, which is crazy. So going even further into that sort of like, I mean, it looks very, very. It reminds me of like World War II, where they would have like or even World War I with the trench warfare, but. Yeah, I think that line of dialogue they put in there was maybe just for the trailer, where it's like kind of muffled in the background. Because I went back and tried to listen to hear what it was, and I think it's just kind of something they threw in there.
There's a lot of like little things that if you listen really closely, I've watched this trailer too many times, and I like watched it without headphones, with headphones. Like I was really trying to get in there because I'm like your brother more so than you, I think, when it comes to this stuff. And like there's such little hints. Like if you listen during the part where you see John Boyega for like the first time when he's talking about being a stormtrooper or whatever, you can hear faint hints of Duel of the Fates in the background, like the hymn, like the thing that they're singing over and over.
Right,
they're just little tiny, very very faint whispers of it. I'm like, that's fucking awesome. So.
Yeah, one of the things taking a step back from the minutia that I really just appreciated about the trailer is that it's just a really well made trailer. Right, it starts. And it could be any sci-fi movie, it could be any sort of thing, and then we get even when you see the Lucas that lovely homage to the older series with the Lucas Limited logo, it still doesn't really feel like it until the music sort of goes from the keynote on the piano to the fully formed love, like the love theme
from Empire,
and then it just reminds me every single time where I'm like, look, I heard the trailer was coming out. I'm like, I'm not really that excited. I don't really care. I'm going to go see the movie. It doesn't matter. And then you watch it and you're like, fuck, it just sucks you back in and it gets you excited. And I'm right there with you where I'm like, this is really cool. This is really cool. This is really cool. And then that moment, that music you hit, And I'm like, oh my childhood came flooding back to me. And you see the Millennium Falcon being chased by TIE fighters. And I'm like, yes, that we live in this time where both the Muppets and Star Wars are relevant again. That is fantastic.
I love the fact that this trailer, I think, was this is a perfect movie trailer because I think that it gets people hyped that weren't already hyped for it. And I think that for the people like me that like you're saying that like you're not that excited or whatever.
I'm very excited, but I know like the second they announced it, I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go see it. I know I'm gonna go see it. I don't really even need to see anything about it. But I could have gone in blind.
You still want to see the trailer and you still get hyped about it. For me, I get hyped for the trailer. Like I was so excited.
Did you watch football for it?
I watched football for it. My God, how long can 7 seconds last?
It's the last 2 minutes of the half, man. That's the way it always
Holy
goes.
shit, man. It was so upsetting. Then all of a sudden they added more time. And I'm like, what is this?
It was a clock error. I loved it.
It was some bullshit.
I loved watching Twitter.
It was some fucking bullshit. Anyways, I watched this shit and I'm like, oh my God, this trailer is exactly what I wanted because it gave me just enough to like delve into and like start speculating and trying to put the plot together in my head and all this stuff. But it also didn't go too far. There's a lot of things that I don't know. There's a lot of questions I have. And I'm like, that's a perfect modern trailer, I guess I should say. Because modern trailers just give away everything.
They tell point for point, plot point
every
by
single
plot
thing.
point.
And I think this movie, you know, more so than maybe the older Star Wars trailers, does kind of show a lot. But having said that, there's so much things it doesn't show. And I think that's what's the most important part about the trailer. Not seeing Luke, besides just the shot we've already seen, is very, very important.
And the shot you've already seen you're talking about is when that metal hand touches R2.
R2. Yeah. And just like the way that they like subtly hint at the story just through the music, just through the use of the music. The fact that they use the love theme between Han and Leia, which is like, why would they go back to that song? And it's like, I think that there's such like a family lineage with that. And when you see that song plays when Han is talking to Rey, I'm like, that's fucking awesome. And then the Force theme, which is also Luke's theme, starts playing. And it's like, this is bringing Luke back into it and like the importance of all of it. I'm like, fuck, man, such a good goddamn trailer.
I think what's special about it too, and it's just an inherent thing because we don't know anything about the movie's plot, is that, which I think is exciting. We don't really know anything about it. We know the characters are. We don't know how they all fit together. You know, we have this new, I don't even know his name off the top of my head, the new Grand Moff Tarkin kind of character, and then we have Phasma, and then we have Kylo Ren. So we have like a whole empire structure that we had with Vader, the Emperor, and say like someone even like, why can't I think of the name, the AT-AT driver, in Empire or whatever.
Watto.
Not Watto, no. You know, nerds out there know what I'm talking about. Where he gets promoted in Empire and stuff like that. Like, so we already have a power structure with like some different dynamics in terms of the like how we assume they're structured, right? And then we have the remnants of the rebellion, which I assume now is the Republic again. The Resistance, I guess now they're called. So something. There's still some. The Empire still holds the cards. It seems like.
Yeah.
Even though the Death Stars destroyed, the second Death Stars destroyed, all this kind of stuff, we often the fight in Empire and Jedi specifically, and even A New Hope, was so singular on on those structures and just those fights between them that we don't take into account how grand the structure is and like how big the Empire is, and that it doesn't really affect them, or it affects them maybe economically and with personnel. I mean, millions of people presumably died on the Death Star, but we don't look at it in terms of like, well, we assume that it was over, but it's not. And so we have these power structures in place, but we don't know how they interact with each other. And so unlike A New Hope going into Empire, especially, or Empire going into Jedi, we don't even have an idea of what they're going to talk about, because Empire going into Jedi, we knew that the movie was going to be about at least partially getting Han back, right? We knew that was what was the movie was being about. So when you see all the trailers in context in 1980, I'm sure I wasn't alive, that, or 1983, that, you knew this was what the movie was going to be about. So when we see all these disparate parts, we have no idea how they fit together. And I think that's super exciting. So no matter how much we see, we have no context. And so I have no problem seeing the trailer. Again, I don't want to see any more, but it's fun because it just brings up more questions than answers. We have no idea how these things fit together, to the point of Luke's music being used and really only seeing Luke's hand or whatever with R2. There's a lot of crazy theories about Luke. And you know, as I talked about on Colin and Greg Live today, even though I don't believe it because there's just a lot of semantical issues, and I don't think they would do that. There's a lot of rumors. There's a feeling that Luke's the bad guy. I just don't see now. We've talked about it in the past, but the further along I get, I'm like, regardless of the semantics and all that kind of stuff, they just wouldn't do that to that character. It was something I was talking about with my brother yesterday. He's like, they cannot heel turn Luke.
But I mean, that doesn't even make sense. We've seen Kylo Ren now without his helmet on. It's not Luke.
But people
That's Adam Driver, right?
People are still discussing it though, as if it's
dumb.
As if it is a thing. We've not seen Kylo Ren though.
Haven't we
in footage though we've not seen Kylo Ren in footage
with his mask off.
Yeah,
So
we've
from
seen
behind
behind.
We see it from
oh,
behind.
I see. Okay,
There's
all
one
right.
shot of
Yeah.
him like with presumably his hair.
His beautiful.
So
Adam
haven't we
Driver
seen
hair.
Luke in? Maybe they're just.
It was a leaked production still of him that might not even be from the movie. Like that, the thing you're talking about, there's a picture of him like around green screen. That might be for toys or something. That,
Oh, okay. Because I could have swore we saw at least one poster of him where he was dressed as sort of like the Obi-Wan style character.
That was like a behind the
we
scenes
did see
picture.
we did see that. I mean, that's the only shot we've seen of him. The point I'm trying to make about the Kylo Ren Luke connection, or whatever, and all that is that it's fun to have speculation because there's just no context. And what I'm excited about with it is that I don't want to go to Reddit or anything. I don't use Reddit anyway, but I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of like reading all this stuff, and I don't even know half the characters' names. Like, and that's so weird to me because I am so intimately familiar, especially with the not the prequels, with the trilogy, the real Star Wars movies, that I know everyone's name in Jabba's palace, every one of them, right? And so like I don't even know the fucking main characters' names in like you can put all these random ass fucking people in front of me and I can name them for you, right? But with this new one, I just don't know these characters yet, and I like it. And to Nick's point, I think it's fun that I'm gonna go and I'm gonna see it and I'll learn about it.
Yeah.
And the speculative drive, we should enjoy it now because episode 8 will not benefit from the same speculative drive because we are going to know where the story is going, and it's going to have a different feel. Of course, we'll be able to relive that with Rogue One and all those kinds of things, but even that we know how that story ends. So this is fun because we just don't know anything about it.
I think the cool thing is the fact that back in the day, there wasn't the internet and all that stuff. So like the reveal in Empire, no one saw coming. Whereas nowadays, it's like it's with the moment a trailer comes out, people can figure out everything about the movie, or at least as much as is possibly drawn from that trailer. So I just think that even the fact that this movie, people want to know every single thing about it. People are discussing every single frame, and we still have a lot of things we don't know. And we're 2 months out from release. That's pretty damn good. Like there's some twists, there's some things that are going to happen that we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, they're the big questions that need to be answered, and that's what's fun about it, right? Is that we don't know who Kylo Ren is, we don't know who Rey is, we don't know who any of these people are in context, or really John Boyega in context to the grander story, and that is what's fun about it. And you're right. I mean, episode 8's not going to have the same sort of energy behind it because we'll be knee deep in that. Having said that, though, it just dawned on me. I'm like, wait a minute, this is part 1 of a trilogy. Like that's crazy.
And there's 6 of them coming out. I mean, there's 6 movies coming out.
Yeah, but which means that at some point we're gonna see Luke Skywalker fight someone with a lightsaber. It's gonna happen. That's exciting to me.
I'm almost positive.
I hope that they kill Luke.
I don't see they're gonna kill Luke. I would
Not
worry
now,
they're
at
gonna
least.
kill Han.
I think they're definitely going to kill Han. I would love it if they just wiped out some of these characters and did it like go real. And this is what I was talking about with my brother with the Kylo Ren rumors and all these kinds of things, and Luke and why we've seen Luke and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, because the rumors about like I don't think Luke's even going to be in this movie that much. I don't think he's going to be in this movie almost at all. I think he's gonna you're gonna see him a little bit. You're obviously gonna see him, but I think you're gonna. I would say Luke under 5 minutes of screen time.
For sure.
I mean, the story here is that they're out to find him, right?
That's the
Isn't
rumor.
that the rumored story.
Yeah,
is?
I have a feeling that that's not going to end up being what it is. I really do think that Luke's either going to be like the final shot of the movie, like a cliffhanger type thing, or he's going to come in during the climax fight.
Like I was talking about today in Colin Live, where they all have their hands above their head and they all bring him down. Him swooping in.
I don't even think then. I think it's going to be after a character death.
Just comes flying in like Neo,
and he's going to come in.
Yeah.
It seems to me
He's doing a Superman
my
thing.
feeling about, and I don't know because I'm not in it enough anymore into the Star Wars lore, and people are just so into this and know so much more about it than I do at this point, which was not the way it was when I was younger. Where that scene of him and R2, presumably him because of his mechanical hand, obviously lost his hand in Bespin with his first fight with Vader.
And R2's there, so
and
you
R2
can assume he probably wouldn't have let that droid go.
No, of course, yeah, like they're boys. Is that Dagobah?
It could be.
And like, and I'm wondering, like, did he go back? Did like Yoda leave something there? Like, is there something? Like, is there some reason for him? Like, is it just
Get my balls? You must.
The imagery of that. I'm like, that's just. It could be any play. I mean, there's a fucking million planets, right? But I'm like, the imagery of that. I'm like, that's too weird. And R2 being emotional or seeming emotional there, and him putting his hand down. Like, are they remembering something, or is there that scene to me is steeped with a lot of like mysticism almost.
Is there not fire in that scene?
That's the thing is my thing
Maybe
is
Dagobah's
that
on
to me it's
fire.
either Dagobah and that's going to be like at the end of the movie, or I think that's going to be either some flashback or just something where the scene where we see all the flamethrower motherfuckers and like just Kylo Ren's going through wrecking shit and we see Captain Phasma running through. I have a feeling that's going to be a really pivotal scene where the stormtrooper dude, Finn, John Boyega, he in that thing decides he doesn't want to be a stormtrooper anymore because he sees like a bunch of murders and shit. And I have a feeling that like Luke is at the scene after it happens, and I think that Luke's like shit.
Well, see, but that also begs a more interesting question too. Is that prior to this time period, all the stormtroopers were sort of mindless clones, right? I mean, they were clones. They had sort of minds, and we've established a little bit in the Clone Wars that they have individual personalities. But in the original three, in 4, 5, and 6, they were just sort of like blank slates, right? So where have the stormtroopers gone to now, 30 years later? Are they just normal people that are recruits?
I think during the original trilogy, they were just normal people. We just didn't really
I think they were still clones.
Well, that was I don't know the answer to that because my impression was always that, and that's why episode 2 bothered me so much.
Yeah,
was because it did, just like they ruined Vader, they ruined everything in those movies. So it's unclear to me what the status is of the stormtroopers by the time A New Hope happens, because that was what was so fun about it. Even in Tales of the Empire, which I know is not the EU's not counted anymore, they would tell all these stories about these individuals, but they told one story about just one stormtrooper, and I always loved that because it was always like these guys enlist, they come from these faraway planets. Seems like the Empire might be like, I mean, they clearly are, but it seems like the Empire might be deeply racist in the sense that all the stormtroopers seem to be human. So, they speak the common language and all that kind of stuff. So there was so, again, the Nazi imagery, there seemed to be way more fascism on display when you thought that these were individual people as opposed to clones. And I don't know enough. I'm sure there is an answer. Sure. But I don't know when that cutoff happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that by the time that happens, at least most of them aren't clones anymore. It's just people enlisting. I mean, and this is just a production thing, but some of them are shorter, some of them are taller.
Oh yeah. I mean, and they talked a little bit in The New Hope, thinking back, where he was talking about wanting to join the Empire anyway, right? To be a pilot. Wasn't that?
No, he
was talking about
rebellion. He wanted to join the rebels.
No, I thought he was thinking about. Wasn't he thinking about joining the Empire?
No, the rebellion. Well, the deleted scenes with Biggs on Tatooine or whatever weren't.
Was he going to join the rebellion?
Well, no, I mean, he even says it in the scenes that are in there. I think he wanted to be a rebel fighter, right? I mean, I thought so. I mean, I haven't seen New Hope.
Yeah, it's Rebel. I just watched it last weekend.
Yeah. Anyway, go on.
No, I mean, I just think it's fascinating because we just really don't know what this time period is. And the sad thing is, when you sort of envisioned after Return of the Jedi, you sort of envisioned that they would go on then to kind of overthrow the Empire and live in prosperity for the next like 30 years. But apparently that wasn't the case.
And I mean, I think that's the coolest thing is like we got so much about the world and where it's at just in this trailer. Like just the little bit of the two main characters talking to Han and being like what the hell? And then him being like, it's all fucking true. That shows that like when that shit happened, Jedi and Sith gone completely. Like no one believes in the Force. No one believes in any of that. Well, what Colin was talking about a bit about it being like this thing where we don't know the scope of the whole thing. The Death Star exploding, yeah, it's a big deal, but that was just one thing,
Oh no, I know, and that's what's crazy to me is like you look at Han and you have to think back that he didn't really have that much sort of exposure to the Jedi culture, right? He had Luke, which is pretty much it, but he comes in contact with Vader once and then gets put in carbonite. And so he has that line where he talks about it's all true. He says it's all true, but he says the dark side and the Jedi. And he doesn't, I mean, maybe it's just the way it was written, but he doesn't mention the Sith because maybe he doesn't really understand what that is.
He probably wouldn't. I mean, the Sith wasn't even mentioned in the original trilogy.
Right, exactly. And so that might have been something that's not even culturally like relevant in this time period. But it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be fascinating to see where Kylo Ren comes from and who trained him. And
if he's even trained.
He looks like he's trained.
Does he?
He's got a dope ass.
He just fucking turns the lightsaber on. It looks like he just.
Well, he looks like he's trained because presumably he's torturing. He's using the Force to torture Poe.
See, I thought he was reading his mind.
Yeah,
pulling memories from his head.
Well, I mean, to me, I didn't get that vibe. I got that vibe of that like he's doing some nefarious,
similar to House.
Well,
yeah, exactly.
Not to get too far into this, but two things we talked about in the video we made were with that scene. I think it's a clear homage to A New Hope when Vader's torturing Leia and then blows up Alderaan. In the trailer that we just saw, it looks like he's torturing him and then using the new Death Star thing to blow up. You see a planet like exploding. It looks like it's his home planet. I think they're at least alluding to that. The other thing would be when there is a shot when you see Poe Dameron walking and John Boyega, the crossing paths in front of the X-Wing. And it's like kind of that like buddy moment.
He hits him on like the shoulder.
The VO is Han and he's saying like, it's all true. The dark side, the Jedi. When he says dark side, you see Poe. When he says Jedi, you see Finn. And that could be something. I don't think so. I think they only did that to make people think that John Boyega's a Jedi. He's not a goddamn Jedi.
Is the assumption too that planet where that scene
You're a
happens,
Jedi,
that's Yavin?
there you go.
Or it's a moon. That's Yavin. Our assumption is, right?
So which one?
When they do cross each other's paths, I mean that's Yavin, we assume, because it looks like Yavin.
Which one was Yavin?
Like where like their original base is.
Oh, where they have the
where
thing
they
at
have the ceremony.
end,
At the end,
Yeah, Tim mentioned that because there's a spot where they walk into a temple that looks
Yeah,
like
it looks
that.
just like they're.
I think
that
that the
architecture.
temple place is Yavin. I'm not sure if that's the same planet as. We don't know. There's so many planets that look similar now.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool though, because like when we all saw the desert planet, it's like, why does so much shit happen on Tatooine? It's like, oh, it's not Tatooine. It's just a different desert planet.
Yeah,
But
which
it
is
would be
weird.
fascinating though if that was still the sort of the hub of the rebel forces, and that planet is the one that we're seeing getting basically sieged by the Empire.
Yeah, like that's their capital or whatever.
Yeah.
Like their Coruscant. I think it goes even deeper than what you're talking about with because that scene with Han Solo when he talks about like it's all true, it definitely is super meaningful. Might be the most meaningful line and shot in the entire thing, because it does indicate that there are stories that are missing and that there's again context missing even for the people on the ground 30 years later. And what it makes me wonder is like, is that there's politics, like practical politics. And I know that they tried to get into this in the prequels and it didn't succeed very well, but that wasn't really the problem with the prequels. I like the idea of trade embargoes and all this kind of stuff in the Senate and all. And I think that's fine. It just was muddled. It wasn't told right.
A vote of no confidence in the Chancellor.
Thank you, Greg.
Senator Jar Jar Binks, what do you think? I used to say this is going to suck.
Are you done?
I'm done.
So I wonder if there's like some sort of political ramification, because the one thing we don't often consider, we look at the Empire as this big behemoth. There clearly are people who are enlisting into the Empire and the stormtroopers and drafting themselves basically. What we lose sight of is that there might be a lot of people that do not support the rebellion at all, and that they are loyalists to the Empire. And I think that that's one of the things we're going to get into is the Death Star being blown up wasn't that significant overall for them, and that they might have even hidden it. That like no one really even knows. Like there are stories about it, but there's no evidence that it happened. Clearly, they got Vader's helmet and all this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of weird shit missing in terms of the political story of how they get to that point. I think that's going to be played up a lot. And in terms of if the rebellion wasn't able to turn the tides on the Empire after that, then what does that all mean? The one disappointing thing is that I think is fucking corny as shit is like having another Death Star. You know, like give me a break. Like enough. That's the third time in like 40 years you're gonna build this thing. You know, like just.
Wait, this hasn't been confirmed. You're just going off the poster, right?
Well, and you see it in the trailer too.
Was it doing Death Star stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you see it blow up a planet.
I just
You
saw
see
the planet on
blow
fire.
up.
I didn't
don't
know
think you
what.
ever see that.
Well, you see the blast, and then it cuts to a thing.
Well, you
blowing
see
up.
a blast. I mean, that could just be a J.J. Abrams lens flare too.
Yeah, I
That's
just
how he does that shit.
let's assume that it is
But it's
what
fair
it seems like it
assumption.
is. But I'm just like it has like this prominent place on the poster and stuff. I'm like, come on, you know, like that's the one thing I'm like,
Like,
we
we're
don't
gonna get this right.
need another mega structure from the Empire. It's not working out too well for them. The coolest thing in terms of what we see, I love the way the trailer starts, is that derelict crash Star Destroyer. What a fucking awesome idea
And it's
to
just,
really
like,
show the
salvaging
scope of it and how big it is, and it's just sitting there, you know, like a remnant of an old battle. I think. That's the cool thing about this movie that I think there's, now that we're 7 movies in, that I think is really cool, is that there's now history. There's always been history in the galaxy. We just haven't really seen much of it. There's real history now, like from things that have happened and these old relics and stuff, and the way the TIE fighters and the X-Wings are even different now, but they're still the same. And it's exciting. You know, it's definitely, I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not excited about it, because I'm very, very excited about it. A lot of cool imagery, a lot of cool characters, a lot of questions. I'm excited to see Phasma take her helmet off, which I think is going to happen. I like just in like no one knows who she is. We know who she is, but you assume.
Well, I
that they
liked
don't
it in the
really
trailer.
know.
We saw that Kylo takes his helmet off, because I think that was a big question of, is he even going to? Is he going to be more of a Vader type? And I like that, especially when he takes it off. He looks like fucking Anakin with his hair.
Yeah.
It's great. So fucking great.
Oh, what's going to be even crazier is that at some point, someone's going to have to explain to him that Darth Vader actually wasn't a bad guy toward the end. And that's going to be an interesting point. Right? Because at some point,
He's not gonna believe him.
You're going to think that he's going to believe him when Luke was like, hey, dog, search your feelings. You know this to be true.
No, he's going to
He
be
was
filled
actually a
with
pretty
rage.
okay guy.
He won't listen.
He's a
Okay,
great
guy.
dude.
And
Yeah.
I love. Well, that's
not bad
a
guy.
good point in the fact that no one knows that happened.
No one knows it happened.
And that is a really, really good point.
So
Only
there's a cult
Luke
of
and
Vader
Anakin
still.
know that happened.
Right.
Luke's gone. Anakin's dead. So they don't know. Like they might have thought he fought valiantly to protect the Emperor and the throne room and stuff like that. The cool thing, and this was a rumor, which is why I wonder like what rumors were true and what rumors weren't, was one of the early rumors that I had read about this before we had started seeing anything is that they worship Vader.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's true.
and they really do worship him. You know, and I think that's so like they've confirmed it in the trailer now. It's not just like this helmet, this like relic they have. Like they are like he talks to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so cool.
But it's fascinating that they worship him and not the Emperor, right? It's fascinating that he is the icon. He is the sort of the god in their culture and not Emperor Palpatine.
And that's where the political and the weird intrigue comes in. Is like, are the stories told that the Emperor turned? Or is there like is there all these fake stories going on about what happened in that room with the three of them? You know, like, oh, it's so cool. Like it's such a nice thought to know that, you know, they have this cult of personality with Vader. Mm-hmm. It's really, really cool. And that was a really early rumor and it was true. And that brings me to the point of, you know, I always talk about conspiracy theories and how conspiracy theories are often not true because you assume people can't keep quiet. And the more, you know, like the moon landing one where it's like that would involve thousands of people, someone would have spoken. These movies have involved thousands of people, from the bit actors to the stormtroopers to the special effects people to the cameramen to the fucking caterers and no one has said anything yet. You know, like I'm sure that there are ironclad NDAs, but that hasn't stopped people in the past before, and that's why I'm so intrigued by and excited by the fact that they've just managed to keep everything under wraps, and I hope that they manage to do it moving forward. I am not confident that they're going to be able to.
No, as we get closer,
they're so close to the finish line.
They are, and that's where things always get fucked up.
I mean, honestly, I don't think there's that many things we don't know at this point.
I think there's a lot of things we don't know.
There's like a couple big questions of like how people are, like who's related to who and who dies when. And will Kylo survive the movie?
Oh, I don't. I mean, those are questions, but I disagree. We just went over like all the things we don't know. Any one of those things.
I think if you looked into things a little more, you'd answer your own questions with a lot of that. Like I was kind of staying quiet with this, but check out the video we did earlier if you want to see a little bit more.
I mean, it's all speculation at this point. To Colin's point, we don't know what the bigger picture is. We don't know what the plot is of the movie, right? We don't know if it's about destroying the new Death Star or any of that stuff. We have no idea how Luke fits into it. So that's what's cool about it.
But if you watch it, there's an Easter egg.
Which one?
There's this girl in it that no one's talking about, dressed in white.
Mm-hmm.
Looks a little bit like Padme. That's all I'm saying.
All right.
Been there a few times. She got a phaser, I think, at one point.
I don't think
Set
it's a
to
phaser.
stun.
I think it might be.
She looks like Padme.
I think it might be a glow wand from
glow wand. All right.
Ghostbusters, right? Isn't that what they call them? The glow wands.
Those things are called the thing she's using is called like a vibroblade or something, right? It's almost like the thing that the Imperial soldiers used in Jedi, the ones that they hold. She even holds it like them, actually, if you watch. She holds it like inverted. Like she has her hand in front of it.
Schooled.
I just got schooled.
You
That's
got destroyed.
awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, let us know in the comments.
I think that's
what you think of this Star Wars trailer. And if you want these Star Wars to stay. That's for you.
Do you want me? I
Little
love
Bill
that.
Murray.
I
No,
love
don't
it.
sing
I
it,
love
please.
I'll
Don't
sing it
sing
for
it.
you right now. Star Wars, if they should bar wars, please let those Star Wars stay.
Colin, what's your topic?
I want to talk about, and so I don't want to take credit for this because a lot of people have asked me to talk about this topic, and I got an email about it, but I don't want to cite one person in particular because a lot of people brought
President
this up to
Obama,
me.
then.
So President Obama asked me specifically to talk about this, which is weird because he's all about it. Political correctness.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to define it for you guys first. I'm going on my phone. I'm not spelling it right. There we go. RRECTNESS.
Don't know me. I don't know how to spell.
There we go.
For shit.
So political correctness according to Google, and this is, I'm sure, taken from like Merriam-Webster or something. The avoidance often considered as taken to extremes of forms of expression or action that are perceived to exclude, marginalize, or insult groups of people who are socially disadvantaged or discriminated against. So this is a notion that came up really in the 90s. And it came up around things like affirmative action and stuff like that. I don't want to talk about all that old shit now, but the reason that political correctness is so interesting to me is because I actually wrote about it quite a bit when I was at IGN, and one of the common things that people talk to me at that time now, or would disparage me about, was like, this is a relic of the 90s. No one talks like, political correctness isn't even a thing. It doesn't even happen. And now clearly it's a thing, and it's run amok, and it's fucking everywhere around us. So yeah, hashtag Colin was right, but also hashtag it was obvious that this was a real thing. And I'm curious how you guys, like, what your guys' take is on this movement of political correctness, this take on scrubbing offensive things, or not being inclusive enough, or not having enough women in something, or enough men, or enough people of color, or whatever it is, different ethnicities, religions, and stuff like that. And what it means to you, and is it a valid thing? Is it not a valid thing? Because to me, it seems to be a culture war that is so obviously frightening in a way to me that almost like it almost comes off as fascism in a way. It almost comes off as lacking free expression or free speech. It almost comes off as something that is designed, no doubt, with good intent to protect people and make them feel good, but actually scrubs free will from the way people act and the way people speak and the way people talk. So I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts on this at all before I jump down the rabbit hole.
For me, it's talking about painting with a broad brush. You know what I mean? It's hard to jump into this topic and not have specific examples or something like that. Like overall, is political correctness a bad thing? Not necessarily. Has it been taken to extremes left and right? Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's the problem. Right now, I feel like at least the camp I'm in is that when you bring up something, if you're using political correctness, if you're talking about being politically correct, it's a negative. Somebody's talking about it. It's the examples, maybe just because I live in the house with you and we talk about it. The examples you bring up are so far and extreme that you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why would anyone do that? When people are outraged at a comedy show that a comedian's saying this different stuff, I'm like, you paid the money to go in there to hear the jokes that are meant to make you go, you know what I mean? Like, that's what comedy is. And you hear like, what, it was Seinfeld and who was the other comedian?
Chris Rock or
Chris
something.
Rock, we're talking about how they can't go to college campus anymore. They don't play it because everybody's too thin-skinned on this, that they're too upset about it. The problem that it spirals out to, you know, that I don't know if it's just the circles you run in or the people you choose to surround you with or surround yourself with, is that it comes up so rarely, I feel, in terms of our everyday lives. You know what I mean? Which is weird when you think about it, because our everyday lives are speaking to someone through the screen and doing something on the internet and, you know, saying whatever the fuck we want and then just having to deal with consequences. But I feel the fact that we laid that out there, we've created a community of best friends that are like-minded on that front, that they don't get offended. They do get offended here and there, but not on the level of crying PC foul and coming at us and making all these things happen or go. But it's like when we were talking about a couple months ago, trigger warnings and all this stuff and all these different things. You were talking about college campuses, and my reaction, of course, was like, well, sure, but like these are no-name colleges doing it. I've never heard of it, And then you looked up, and there was one at Northeastern, and there was one at Mizzou. But it was like, it again isn't like on the grand scale. It is these like, you were boiling them down to these one-by-one examples. And that's when it gets to the point of like looking, you know, at the tree rather than the forest and where the real problem is. I feel like when it comes up and it's like, yeah, this class on American history or whatever is doing a trigger warning for this, that's like, it sounds ridiculous, and it is a bit ridiculous to me. And so like, I don't know anybody who I'm walking around with talking to that to go back and dial back to their college career when they went to this American history class, they needed to hear this trigger warning. You know what I mean? And so it's just this weird thing of a world that's so far off and on the other spectrum, you don't even know what's happening. I don't have any context, boots on the ground in there. And so you hope it just gets blinked out or whatever.
Yeah. I think it's like, to me, I take it more as just a responsibility on myself to understand what I don't understand and just know that the way I think something's going to make people feel is not necessarily how it's going to make them feel.
Sure.
And to just at least try to understand, what am I doing and how is that going to affect people?
Yeah.
And then learn from your mistakes.
Exactly.
And see how things affect people. And if people, you know, react a certain way, then I'm like, all right, I understand that perspective now or where they're coming from. Then it's up to me to decide
exactly
what I think is acceptable or not. And like, if what they're reacting to, if they're valid or whatever. And it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not up to me to decide if what they're doing or saying is valid. It's up to me on how I decide of how I'm going to react to it.
Exactly.
You know?
No, that's a great point. I mean, the big thing about all of this is, yeah, and it's the broad brush painting, right? Of where I just talked about trigger warnings and how I thought they were dumb in this college. And this is from an article I read, you know, that was about this very specific thing. So that isn't reflecting on everyone's trigger warning or anything else, right? Like, if for somebody to come to me with their story and explain why they need trigger warning on this thing, not necessarily what I'm talking about, that makes sense. It's all about, this is what we always talk about with the political argument, right? It's about being malleable, right? I want to know your experience so I can take it in, process it, and then have my own reaction to it. And maybe it is that I agree you're right, or maybe it is I agree that I stick with how I feel on this.
Yeah. And I just think it's important to just, at the end of the day, just try to be a good person. And it sounds so freaking stupid and simple, but I feel like so many people that get upset about this and like do kind of react to all of these things and that get upset at like, that wasn't politically correct and get angry about it, they end up acting more obscene and more like upset than anything. And that is what I think causes the big problem, because instead of focusing on the issue at hand,
Sure.
it's making an issue out of anything. And really, you need to understand the intent of what was meant. When I say something, like I hope that people understand what I'm trying to say, not what I'm saying, if that makes sense.
No, it does. Yeah.
And like if you just take what I'm saying out of context or whatever, or even in context, like, and you twist it, he's like, oh, he was saying this. It's like, I wasn't saying that. Like, you should know what I was saying. And if you don't understand that, that's the miscommunication. Let's have a conversation about that. You know, like there's been so many things, and especially that it's our job to talk and say stuff. There's so many things that I've said that over the years I've looked back and seen people still talk about, and then I'm like,
vast library.
There's a vast library of stuff, yeah. And they look back at this, or I look back at it, and I'm like, man, like to see where a statement I made is now being talked about years later. I'm like, that's not even what I was talking about. A couple things that come to mind are when I talked about space on the GameOverGreggy episode
with Damon,
where it's like everyone on the internet now loves to point out the fact that I said that that iPhone announcements are more important than space travel. And I'm like, I didn't say that. And even if I did say a sentence that sounded like that, I wasn't literally saying it's more important. I'm saying I care more about that because it affects me in a way that like this is technology I use every day.
99% of the world will probably agree with you by their actions. Maybe not in by the thought process, but
that's my entire point.
I don't see people lining up in front of NASA for the next spaceship launch.
That's my entire point is that like then people just get upset at me for saying this thing.
Sure.
And it's like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like, and even if I was making a joke or even if like whatever, they get so upset about that. The other thing being the my topic when I talked about recycling, where people like using other people's recycling or whatever. And
yeah.
People are making that sound like I was trying to say that like putting down the people that go around and
take bottles.
Pick up the my only point was I don't understand like how that's worth it.
And we did get a couple really good responses from fans whose families have done that and why they do it.
And for sure, and that's great. But it's like people are acting like I was being insensitive to all that. And that's the type of thing was like, I don't know what to do. You know what I mean? Because I know what I meant by that. I know that I didn't mean anything bad. I know I wasn't talking shit about anybody.
Yeah.
So it's like you guys talking shit about me saying things. You're the one talking shit now.
You're going to get shot.
Yeah. I mean, to Colin, to your original kind of point, I'm torn on this issue because I feel like it's better as a society to err on the side of being a little too politically correct than the opposite of that. And I think that the current sort of move in the progressive voice on the internet right now is very probably a distinct byproduct of where this country's been at for the last 70 years, right? I mean, we have a culture where we have mistreated minorities and women pretty radically over, the last 60, 70 years. And so coming at it, I think that's what we're seeing is that, societies always try to find that balance culturally. And I think that that's what we're trying to do. Now, what personally, since we talk for a living, I find it kind of interesting because I do, if you'd have caught me 10 years ago, I would say distinctly different things than I do now, largely because I'm afraid of having that echo chamber pick it up and then and blow it out of proportion, but also largely because it's our responsibility as people who are putting out thoughts in there and really analyzing things to start to not filter but pass it through a guise of politically correctness of saying, is that something that I should be saying right now? Or maybe don't say it like that. Maybe say it from a little bit more intelligent standpoint so that people understand your message instead of going out there. And it's very difficult because a lot of times, a lot of things that get picked up are quote unquote humor. Someone's like, well, I'm a comedian or I'm just saying a joke and you guys shouldn't be offended at this. We're not that. We have a little bit more of a responsibility to our audience. We have to kind of be, we have to have those discussions. And, we talked about we had a topic, I think, on the phrase no homo, right?
We talked about that a few times. And so like being able to talk intelligently about that, I think is incredibly important. But where's the line drawn, right? Where is it? And that's always the hard part. Where do you draw the line of saying, I'm going to say this intelligently versus not say it because I'm afraid of persecution, or I'm afraid that someone's going to pick it up out there and the echo chamber of people who just want to have a voice heard regardless of what they think or don't think. They just want to go out there and lambast someone. That's what you're opening yourself up to. And so I think it's definitely interesting because it does have freedom of speech does start to play into it a little bit of saying like someone should be able to say whatever the hell they want to say, even if it's the most offensively racist thing possible. We have a society that should allow people to say that. But at the same point, now we're seeing this counterbalance to that, which is if you do that, people are going to jump down your throat and probably kick you off the internet and probably make your life a living hell. But is that right too? And that's the problem, is that it's just all extremes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're not, whether you're saying the most horrible racist thing in the world or you're just saying something in jest, something whatever, something you believe or whatever, like you still get that extreme reaction of the dog pile that makes it so hard to figure out. I mean, how many times have we ended this show or whatever, and you want to listen to a bit, or you'll ask us if you said this, but is that okay? I've done it before too.
Oh yeah.
Or we have to make Kevin edit something.
Poor Kevin.
Out, you know what I mean?
Poor Kevin runs out of Bic pens when I start talking. He's just like, shit, get ready. And largely because I'm just trying to be funny, but at the same time, to my earlier point, you can be funny, but sometimes I'll say something and be like, that I would meant that a certain way, but because of the way it came out of my mouth, that could be construed as very, very offensive, and that's not the intent.
Exactly.
I have an interesting, actually, perfect example of this. I went to a comedy show on Friday with my brother for his birthday, and we were sitting at a table with two women that we had not met before. They sat down, we started introducing ourselves. One of them was a mother who, this was her first night out in a while. She just had a child. And the other one was a 27-year-old girl who had actually worked for one of the comedians, and they were friends because they worked at a bar together down the road. And we went and saw Brad Garrett, who was, he's the brother on Everyone Loves Raymond. Super funny, but very, 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 very skating the line of what is funny and what's incredibly racist. Similar, the one of the comedians that followed him was a Mexican American, I guess, or Latino female. And then after that was a guy who quote unquote was a redneck, and that was his words, not mine. He's like, I'm a redneck, but I married a Mexican girl. And so all of her humor was based on being a wife and being Mexican and having, and what it means to have a husband. And all of his humor was being a redneck and having a Mexican wife. And he, the things that he said were, taken out of the context of you're at a comedy club, could be construed as offensive. Now, I think he was using sort of the racial line to kind of be self-deprecating, but she did not see it that way. And she got very, very offended, one of the women that was sitting with us, and started basically heckling him. And that did not end well.
Not for her, I'm sure.
Not for her. But it was interesting because I was like,
don't heckle a comedian.
On the one hand, I respect you for having your opinion. And he is saying that, to be fair, there was a line where I'm like, there's a little bit of implied racism happening here, and they're doing it on purpose because I think for whatever reason, I don't know. But Brad Garrett specifically was saying some very, very, very interesting things toward one of the African American women in the audience, and I was like, we're at a comedy club. I got to remember that I chose to be here, and I guess that at the end of the day, that's what I had to remind myself. Is I was like, I chose to be at a comedy club, so therefore, I am also choosing to be offended if someone says something at a comedy club that I'm paying to see. This is this person's job, right? He's supposed to be sort of pushing the limits of what I feel is acceptable for the sake of comedy. But at the same time, am I right for, we ended up actually having to get up and leave because I didn't want to have my night disrupted by this woman who was becoming a little bit more belligerent as the day goes on. I mean, she was literally screaming and
so she became the issue.
She became an issue only because she was so offended that I wish she had done what I chose to do, which was I'm not comfortable with the situation anymore. Not because of the comedian. I thought most of the things they were saying was totally fine. I mean, again, you're going to get offended. At some point, if you sit down at a comedy show in Burbank, California, you're going to get offended. Someone's going to say something, you're like, oh shit, that was a little outside of the lines what I feel are politically correct. But you have a choice. You can ruin everyone else's night around you, or you can do what my brother and I did, was say, you know what, we're not comfortable here anymore.
But so why did you leave though? Did you leave because you were offended, or did you leave because she was ruining your shit because she was being super loud about her political correctness?
She was being very loud, and I mean, at one point, the gentleman's jokes were on the line, right? But he was using his relationship with his wife to illustrate the fact that he was in fact kind of a dipshit, right? So he was saying all these things about his wife being Mexican, but using that situation to illuminate the fact that he was kind of a lesser of a man or whatever. It was very self-deprecating. That's what I took from it. She did not take that. She just took that he hated his wife and was racist against Mexicans. And I know that because that's exactly what she kept saying over and over, louder and louder. Well, this guy hates his wife. And oh, look at all the white people laughing at the Mexicans. Mind you, we were in Burbank, so it was a very mixed ethnic group. I mean, there was plenty of Mexican people and black people and white people in the audience.
She just kept looking right at you guys and like, look at the white people.
Yeah, she looked at the two chubby white guys. And she was like, you guys are the problem. And I'm like, oh Jesus, this is becoming very, very. It just became not fun for us, and I wish they had. I wish that I'm like, look, if you're in a place where you're offended by this, well, the best way to show your offense is to not give this club any more money, is to cash out, get up, and leave. Mm-hmm. But she didn't want to do that. And my brother, it was his birthday, and he was like, he was getting uncomfortable. I think he wasn't having a good time anymore. So I asked him if he wanted to go, and we cashed out and we took off. And on the way there, the comedian was standing by the door that had just come off stage, and I was like, hey, you're really funny. Thank you for the comedy, and sorry that the person that was sharing the table with us was offended. He goes, what happens? Like, you go out there to put out something into, to talk in front of an audience, and at some point someone's going to have a mixed feeling about what you're saying. Is like, that's my job as a comedian. That's what I do. This is my art. And I'm like, I respect that. So we ended up leaving, but it was a very interesting set of circumstances because I had heard about that. I'd seen hecklers. I saw a heckler one time when I went and saw Androdized Clay. The guy left because Androdized Clay lit into him for 25 minutes straight. And I was like, this is fucked up, but I'm drunk and I'm laughing. But I'd never actually seen someone actually really offended. And, maybe rightfully so. Maybe she had some issues with her marriage, or maybe her husband mistreated her and she just didn't think it was fair that this person, delve into those issues. But it was a unique set of circumstances. And I was torn because I'm like, I can see why you would be offended, but at the same time, you're sort of choosing to be more offended than you need to be. For what reason, I don't know.
Well, this is the problem, and this is kind of where I come back to it. And this is, there's no excuse for being racist or sexist or whatever. That's not really the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
The point is that there's something super Orwellian about terms like trigger warning and microaggression.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you told me that Orwell wrote about microaggressions, because just like he throw it up, newspeak, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. Like, that was what it was all, these very Orwellian or just kind of Brave New World, not an Orwell book, but Brave New World kind of just weird, kind of politically correct, very sanitized, The Giver kind of shit going on. I'd be like, oh, I totally believe that he would write about something like this. Like, trigger warnings. He must have written about this idea that before you say anything, you have to sanitize and make sure no one's feelings get hurt and stuff like that. The reason, to Greg's original point, that I got so upset about trigger warnings in college is that college is designed to teach you things, not make you feel good about yourself. I studied history. If you're walking into a history class, let's say I took many Nazi Germany classes, like 3 or 4 of them. And let's say that you walk in there, does the professor really need to tell you, like, we're going to talk about really heinous shit? Yeah. Because we're talking about the Nazis,
right?
There's
no way to
maybe
sanitize
you do not
that.
belong here. If this is really offensive to you, if you're offended, that's totally your prerogative. My problem with it is that you project your offended posture on other people. That's when I have a fucking huge problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't give a flying fuck if the talk about warfare is insulting to you or offends you in any way. This is a class about history.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This is what we study. If you study history, you study politics and war. That's basically it. So this is where I get upset and I draw the line, is that there's something truly ironic, almost precious in my mind about the progressive stance. And I'm not talking about progressive gay marriage or progressive pro-choice, whatever. I'm talking about like far left progressive craziness, which is what I would deem it. Just like the far right's crazy too. Where it's like you want to scrub so much out that you are censoring people, that you really believe that a world must be lived in which you can't have a comedian tell a joke. You can't have a person at a college because he or she might offend your precious sensibilities. Like, anyone gives a fuck. And I mean, that's like what it really comes down to. Why should anyone care if normal everyday things are offensive to you? They shouldn't. And to your point about, the echo chamber and all that, fuck the echo chamber. I've had many fights with it before in my life, and I will have more fights with it in the future. If they want to come at me, come at me. Mm-hmm. I've come out every one of them on the winning end of that. Why? Because most people, a majority, and I would say even a vast majority of people, agree with us. And they're afraid, like you're saying, of engaging because they don't want to be tanked, but I don't care. Well, I will gladly fight the fight. Gladly.
Not only that, but I also feel like once you start fighting, I mean, I think a lot of the people's, and I do this too a lot of times, right? Is you look at something from just a headline, and you have that guttural reaction to it with zero basis and zero sort of information behind it, and you go at someone, and this is what you have to be very careful of, right? Is that when you start talking about the echo chamber or that specific amount of voices that sort of start piling onto people, that their arguments most often time I found are very, very thin. There's not much back to it. There's no merit. So once you take them on, say, fine, let's have a discussion about this. Let's have an illuminating discussion about this. Maybe I'll learn something. Maybe you'll learn something. You'll find that most people don't have the chutzpah for that. I don't think people want to really hang in there for that. They just want to scream at someone, feel validated, feel like their existence has been heard for 1 second, and then go about their daily lives validated.
The point that I agree with you. First of all, I think it's you know, when you scream, when there's an echo chamber to begin with, it usually means that there's not much of an intellectual backing for anything you're saying. I mean, it's just obvious. I'll debate anyone about anything I say, and I'll do it gladly. I don't care. The problem is that there's a difference between being respectful. For instance, you don't walk down the street and use a racist term. You don't walk down the street and use a homophobic term.
Yeah.
We're very accepting in on this podcast and in our company in terms of, you know, you're welcome here if you're gay, you're welcome here of any color, creed, religion, if you're transgender. I don't like, that's great. That's your prerogative. And as a small government kind of guy and a hands-off kind of guy, I think I encourage you to do that. I mean, do what you want. I don't care. And be who you want to be. It doesn't really bother me, you know, at all.
Sure.
If you want to be a transgender, you want to be into this religion, whatever. I mean, that's you. It's your life. Do what you want. Whatever makes you happy.
But you have to care about trophies.
But you have to care about trophies or you're not welcome here. Now, the thing that I just find sheer irony in the political correct stance in the sense that it's like, why aren't there more women in this game? Why aren't there more people of color in this movie?
Yeah,
why aren't there? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, if you want to make that game or make that movie, make it. Do it. It doesn't mean that this movie shouldn't exist just because there's all white people in it. Or this movie, like Bridesmaids, shouldn't exist because it's all women or whatever. It's the same. It's just all these fucking really vacant arguments about scrubbing. Everything's got to be as diverse as possible. Everything's got to be diversity for diversity's sake, as they say. And it's like, that doesn't sound good to me. You know, like the example I've always used is like, if we hire, let's say we're going to hire 10 people, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to hire the 10 best people for the job. And if they're all black women, then they're going to be all black women. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to hire, there's too many black women. I need an Hispanic. I'm going to need an Asian guy. I got to have an Indian girl. And, you know, it doesn't matter that they're, they're not maybe as good as at their job as the black woman. We got to have diversity, man. Or we're going to, I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm going to do what's best for the company. I'm going to do what's best for the product. And I think that's what people do when they make a film or they make a game or whatever. If they have a dude bro white guy shooter, it's probably because people frankly buy more games with dude bro white guys. And if you want to make your game with an all Hispanic cast, then go for that. I am interested in that. The other side of the spectrum is when you express, and this is why the other side is really just as bad, is that like the other extreme is a couple weeks ago I talked about how I'm really excited about Horizon partially because on PlayStation 4 partially because it got a female lead. And I am always intrigued by the female perspective and playing as a female character, whether it's, you know, not that I cared much for the game, but I was always fascinated by Faith and Mirror's Edge and stuff like that. Like there's something to be said about getting more diversity in there, but I'm not doing it if her, like that's the game they want to make. No one on the grill and was like, we need a woman protagonist. They just did it. And some people in the comments were like, oh, you know, get the fuck out of here with this kind of thing. I'm like, I'm just excited that's a woman character. I mean,
USJW.
Yeah, it's like it's just a lot of silliness.
It's a double-edged sword though, because you wouldn't. It's. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that some of it actually does affect positive change, right? Especially when you look at Hollywood, right? And Hollywood has been historic. It has made films for the most part that are predominantly males, and their portrayal of women for the most part has been predominantly as things that need to be saved, and that's unfortunate. But I think that in order to affect the change and a shift in that, you do sort of need that sort of polar opposite on the left, that sort of fringe out there that's saying so many things that it does make a person like me, who is basically caught up in my normal everyday life, stop and think, you know, as a writer or as someone who's writing a screenplay, am I going to write that female character as sort of a very one-dimensional thing that's just supposed to be acquired by the guy?
Runs around in high heels away from dinosaurs.
Runs around in high heels, exactly. Or is there some merit to this argument that just because something's been that way for so long that it doesn't need to necessarily evolve? And so I think, but that's a perfect example of me looking at that from a very objective perspective and saying, you know what, I think it would better my story if my female characters were as well thought out and well motivated as my male characters. I think it can only be better. It's similar to how if you're going to write a bad guy, what's the point of writing a bad guy that's just inherently evil? It's way more fascinating to watch a bad guy that really believes that he is the protagonist of his own story, that he is the good guy in his story. We talked about Star Wars, on the previous segment, and Darth Vader is a perfect example of that, right? Where he is a guy who thought he believed he was doing well. If you look at it kind of how he was set up, and then at the end realizes that he wasn't. But that's a very fascinating thing. So, I mean, going back to the original point, I think it has affected me positively, but you do need both sides to keep it in balance, right? You need people that are like, come on, really? Like we're really as a society going to start like weeding out words that could be quote unquote offensive. I think one of the stories that I heard, and I don't want to get this completely wrong, so I'll just cursory kind of talk about it, was there was a college, a law school that the students were trying to protest one of the courses that was being taught about rape because that rape was too touchy of a subject and it was a trigger word, a microaggression. But it's absurd, right? How can you train a school of lawyers and not train them to deal with that subject? That is something that happens all the time. And so it has to be kept in balance. There has to be checks and balances, these things. And I think that's kind of what we can do, especially as people who have long form podcasts. We can talk about these things for 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be 140 characters on Twitter of someone, Nick said the word rape on a podcast, let's jump down his throat. No, well, listen to the podcast. We're talking about this intelligently and trying to examine both sides.
Yeah, I think that to your point, there's always a balance. I mean, that's what politics is. It's the pendulum that swings. It's the scales. Like 40% will always vote Republican, 40% will always vote Democrat. It's the middle that's fluid. I just think that we are reaching a point where we're empowering a very small group of people that are loud and think that they hold way more sway and power with the populace than they do, to start to dictate art, to dictate music or comedy, to the point where people that are quite liberal, like Chris Rock, who's very liberal, or Jerry Seinfeld, who's very liberal, are being like, fuck this. Like I don't. First of all, Jerry Seinfeld doesn't need to do anything, and he's coming out and being like, this is fucking crazy. And like it's not just they're the ones that are bold enough and don't care because they have so much money and so much clout that they'll say it. They really are speaking for a lot of younger and lesser known comedians that feel like they can't say, like they can't, oh, you can't joke about this. Why not? Joke about whatever the fuck I want to joke about.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if you're offended by it, that's your prerogative, and I respect that and I appreciate that. But I'm going to joke about it anyway.
Right.
And if you can't handle that, that's your problem. And that, I feel like, is the majority opinion. Not even the majority opinion, because I do believe in the tyranny of the majority. So I'm not necessarily saying it's just because of a majority, but a vast majority of people feel the same way.
Well,
Men,
I would assume so.
Women, every ethnicity, every religion. I'm sure a plurality of all of them feel like, just shut the fuck up. If there's 4 white guys on the movie poster, it's going to be fine. Right. If there's 2 black women in this movie, it's going to be great. If it's like, we can't, it's so funny because we look at things in binary and don't realize that it's actually destructive. As long as we keep differentiating between everyone, as long as we keep bringing and hashing these same tired tropes up all over and over again about the way things are and these trigger warnings and these microaggressions and all of this, I feel like it holds us back, and I really do find significant irony in the progressive side of this argument basically censoring everyone, because that's basically what they want.
See, I don't agree with that. I think that it is important to kind of, bring the minorities and all that stuff and kind of put more focus on it. And like, I agree with you fundamentally that it's like everyone should be treated the same. But I think that because those groups have been treated so differently for so long, we do need to kind of support, like what Nick was saying, like really do kind of redefine what all that stuff is. And we saw it over the 90s. We saw it like going into now, like the way that gays have been treated then and now. It's not perfect, but there is progress. And I think a lot of that does come down to the fact that those conversations started happening. It was way more taboo to be doing that, even like Seinfeld with like saying the whole, not that there's anything wrong with that and like all that type of stuff. That type of stuff, I think, really pushed forward this thing where it's gays now a little bit more of a accepted thing. And I think that, getting more women into roles, getting more ethnicities into main roles, like doing all that type of stuff and making them real characters that matter. It's important. And it's like, I agree with you fundamentally that we should all be treated equally.
I think it's back to the broad brush and the spectrum, right? The truth is somewhere in between. I don't think it needs to be ignored. I don't think it needs to be brought up on every case.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Somewhere in there's this middle area.
Yeah,
And sadly, on Twitter with 140 characters, all we get is...
Sure. And it's important to note that, and I've said it before, it goes both ways. The other side sucks too. Like,
well, I mean,
the other side that complains about the all-female Ghostbusters and stuff. I'm like, I think that's really an interesting idea. So it's, but I think that it, like, to this point, like, you don't bring up. I really don't feel like fundamentally, as someone who writes, like, the character is the character. You do what's necessary for the character. You don't write around what you think you need to fill a diversity quota in your story. I'm sorry,
Sure.
like that's not the way art is created. I don't know any creator that goes about like, I'm gonna write a story. It's gonna have 3 acts, and we have to have complete gender diversity. There's got to be complete ethnic diversity.
There are plenty of people
it.
in Hollywood that would do that.
It's totally absurd. It's like what are the like?
But what are they
is the
trying to say
character?
with the art, though? I mean, like if the goal with the art is trying to make some type of change and is trying to change the perception on stuff, like I
If
think
that is
stuff
the goal of the
very-
art, that is not the goal of most art. You
I
know?
mean, I don't think that's fair to say. Like
the goal of most art is
art's
to
whatever they
change
want it to
something.
be.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think the goal of art is to say like let's change something. I don't think that like they're writing episode 7 being like let's change shit. You know, like I think they're being like.
If you look at episode 7, like I definitely think that I think Star Wars has always been kind of.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a bad example for you to bring up
progressive-
because Star Wars has always, since episode 4, empowered white women.
I didn't bring up Star Wars.
Well, we were talking about. You just said looking at episode 7 and like they're definitely being. I'm saying you brought up you just said it.
Okay, sorry.
I was saying that's a bad example in a way to reinforce the idea because as to your point, they've always been progressive. The man who blew up the Death Star is black, so it's not like. And that was in 1983.
And I mean, Leia is like a very strong lead
to be fair,
female character.
Billy D. Williams transcends all the racial and gender bounds.
He does. Billy D.
god.
Williams is
He's
awesome.
a
I hope he's not in
goddess.
the new ones because now everyone needs to be in it. But that's great.
That would be.
But the point I'm trying to make is like let things happen that make sense for the story. And if it's a gender imbalance or a racial imbalance in some way, then that's the way it is. I do just think that we've gone to this extreme where they're complaining. It's just endless streams of bitching about everything.
Yeah, but I think
that really for people that and here's the thing
that can come from it. Though.
I really don't at this point because it just
do
makes
because
people,
I feel like it's a vocal minority that's out there that's bitching on one side, a vocal minority on the other side, and then there's the rest of us who get to sit in the middle and really think about the issues. Perfect example is was it Kim Davis, that girl the woman that got put in jail because she wouldn't give out marriage licenses, right? That is a fascinating thing, right? You've got the right who was like she shouldn't be going to jail for her beliefs. The left who's like you can't do your job. You're a state employee. You can't do your job. You should step down. And then there's the rest of us in the middle that can kind of a little bit see her side in it, right? Kind of, and for the most, no, I can because she believes in something. She is allowed to believe in that, and she was believed in it so much she went to jail for it. I can appreciate and respect that. I don't agree with her. I think that if she can't do it, I'm more on the left on that.
Yeah,
I think if she can't do her job.
Your job
she
was
has
to
go
do
away.
that.
But I've heard both sides of that story, and now I can form an opinion on that. That is not my first gut reaction was fire her, get her out. Right. But I can appreciate that she is not an inherently evil person. She just has a belief structure that I don't believe in. And that there is another side to that story that is worth me at least looking at and going, nope, I got all the facts. I still believe what I believe. Right. I still have an opinion, but now I've taken a look at all of it and think, you know what? I think my opinion is sound, or maybe I need to shift it a little bit. And I think that's what happens when you start getting these kind of crazies out there is because you just have to be smart about it, and it has to boil down to the individual. Like you're saying, it can't be broad strokes. It has to boil down to you. Look at it all. Take a step back before you draft that tweet. Think about it for a second, and then put something out there. That's
and also just know that whatever you put out there, your view on that is going to be different the next day. You're going to know more information. It might not change, but it's like you're going to know more information. You're going to have a different perspective on your life, and I think the important thing is to keep checking yourself and to keep thinking about where you're at and where you stand on stuff and to keep trying to find out both sides. Mm-hmm. It's not just two sides, every side. Find out as many sides as possible.
The point I was trying to make and where I'm kind of getting to the apex of the argument for me is these reductive arguments that we're talking about, these reductive approaches to just numbers and just quotas and all this nonsense, is that the ultimate victim are the good people that don't feel a negative way but are stigmatized into looking a certain way because people don't, there's a certain group of people that will just ruin them because I've said it in the past and I'll say it again. What happened to the Mozilla CEO when he was basically pushed out of Firefox because he gave money to Proposition 8, which was an anti-gay marriage thing? I'm like, that's fucked up. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm pro-gay marriage. I've been pro-gay marriage for a very long time. A man shouldn't be pushed out for his fucking mainstream political arguments, especially in 2008. He was pushed out of that company because of his political beliefs. And it's not like he has fascist or fucking communist political beliefs. These are not outside the mainstream, still, unfortunately. But my point is that I took a stand for that dude online and was just like, I'm pro-gay marriage, but this seems like fucked up. It's the same argument I've always made where I'm like, people are like, oh, this pro, I would never support anyone that doesn't support gay marriage. I'm like, oh, did you vote for Barack Obama in 2008? I'm just kind of look at my nails and just kind of, be like, and just wait for the answer. Like, yeah, I'm like, oh, because Barack Obama was against gay marriage when he ran in 2008. So I guess you're a bigot. And that's what it comes down to. That guy's a bigot. You know? The guy who, you know, says, you know, I always go back to Borderlands 2 in the girlfriend mode, which was one of my favorite things ever in terms of illustrating how fucking silly this shit is, where a guy giving an interview for Borderlands 2 that worked at Gearbox talked about this kind of complimentary co-op mode, and he called it to one of the publishers, or one of the journalists rather, girlfriend mode, which was a way of saying like, oh, it's for people that don't, you know, play the game, company. He didn't mean it offensive. The guy's not sexist. He maybe used the wrong terminology considering women play games, but he was deemed a sexist, and it probably ruined his fucking career for a little while.
Yeah.
He didn't even do anything wrong. Like, this is the kind of shit I'm talking about, you know? Or when everyone jumped all over Far Cry 4 and Pagan Min because he looked white in the art when he was holding like a grenade against like an indigenous person in the art and stuff like that. And I'm like, the fuck are you guys talking about? First of all, he's not white, he's Asian. Second of all, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
If the
bad guy didn't do bad things that were offensive,
exactly.
There'd be no game.
So this is how comical this is the comical place these arguments end up, and then they start painting people as bigots or racists. I know what it's like because I'm a Republican. You know, the war on women. Yeah, there's a war. Yeah, okay, there's a war on women. Sure, there is. Half of the Republican voter is women. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's all these very reductive. Just because you're pro-life, which I think is, and I'm not pro-life, I'm pro-choice, but just because you're pro-life. And you make a pro-life argument, which I think is a fucking principled and bold argument, and I wish I was pro-life in a way because I respect that side. I really do. They're anti-women. They're bigots. They're sexists. You know? This is the way it all comes down. Just like Republicans are often called racist because they want to have a controlled immigration policy. And they're called this, by the way, by a group of people that are running 5 white people for president. Meanwhile, the Republican Party is running a black guy, an Indian guy, a woman, 2 Hispanic people. Yeah, but we're the racists. No doubt about that, because we feel a certain way about our immigration policy. These are the reductive fucking nonsense arguments that then get fed into the mainstream. And then because people don't do the research and don't talk and don't just think about it for a minute, you know, you present them, oh, it's a war on women. If you're pro-life, you're anti-women. Oh, well, this woman's pro-life. As all along with these tens of millions of other women. That doesn't matter. They're all anti-women. It's like, what are you, fucking crazy? This is the kind of reductive nonsense that we come to when we have this very binary way of looking at things. Instead of just saying like, maybe this man at Mozilla, even though we do not agree with him, and I vehemently disagree with him, I vehemently disagreed with Prop 8, and I voted against it in 2008. Maybe he just had a principled stand. Maybe that's just the way he feels, and maybe he's not a bigot. Maybe he just doesn't believe. Maybe he believes in the traditional religious marriage. Maybe we should just give him the benefit of the doubt. He's not a fucking Nazi. You know what I mean? And maybe this person is just pro-life because they don't believe a 6-month-old baby should be killed out of the womb. And maybe we should just respect that stance, even if we don't necessarily agree with it, instead of calling him sexist. And that's kind of where we get down to it. And trust me, I understand this because it is fucking thrown at me all the time. You know, so that's why I wanted to bring it up, and that's why it makes me so angry, and that's why it makes so many people angry. And I don't think it's a pure white man thing. I think it makes a lot of fucking people angry. You know, to watch their white friends be called a racist or a sexist because they feel a certain way. Women are certainly tired of being told that if they don't believe in like pure feminist doctrine, that they're anti-women, or they don't believe in feminism or whatever. Maybe they have their own definition of feminism. Right. You know, like it's just nonsense, and it's just silly. And it all comes back down to this encapsulated political correctness. This very sanitized, this very clean edges, very white and shiny kind of fucking way we want to look at the world. And that's just not the way it is. Jokes are going to be told. You're going to be offended by things. I'm offended by things all the time. I am deeply offended by things all the time. I'm deeply offended by the way people talk about our country. I'm deeply offended by the way people talk about, you know, the people in this country and the way we are in this country and our traditions, but I don't fucking project that on other people. If you want to look at us like we're Wild West gun toters, that's totally fine. I mean, that's your prerogative. I'm not going to project that on you. It's your prerogative. You know? Yesterday I told a joke about on Twitter about Canadians. The Canadians had a big election and they threw out their prime minister, and I tweeted out a picture of the race is coming down to these 2 characters, and it was a polar bear and Don Cherry. Don Cherry is like a hockey commentator. And I was like, these are the 2 final candidates. And 95% of the people thought it was funny, got retweeted a bunch of times. Everyone was fun, you know, Canadian. You had to be Canadian and real deep. Don Cherry's a deep cut. So you'd really have to be Canadian and stuff like that. But there's a few people like,
funny suits.
But there's some people like, what the fuck, man? Why are you making fun of our... I'm like, come on. I'm so clearly joking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the thing, and I think oftentimes people choose to be offended first before they do anything, and that's just kind of like just unfortunate.
It's the knee-jerk reaction
Yeah.
you see the Twitter and you want to make the response, and then you're on with your day and you're moving on to the other thing.
Just know that that's
Extremes.
not. Just know that sort of reaction is just does not give you any sort of real validity in life.
Talk to each other. Listen to each other. Have conversations.
And here's the craziest thing of all, to your guys' point, because you're right. Talk to each other. Listen. Maybe it's fair for the one side not to assume the worst of the other side. Maybe the Republicans, by and large, aren't sexist.
No.
And maybe they're not racists. I mean, I'm not sexist and I'm not a racist. You know? All the Republicans I know are not racist and not sexist, including, obviously, the women, including, obviously, the minority Republicans that I know. You know? Maybe it's time to stop drawing caricatures of people that you don't agree with. Maybe it's stop, we're talking about painting with broad brushes. Let's talk about painting. Let's really talk about that then, because that's the reductive argument that we come to and that's where things get really shady and really fucked up with political correctness, which is a very real phenomenon, which is that if you don't agree with them, you're bad, you're evil.
Right.
They'll block you on Twitter.
Your character assassination.
They'll assassinate your character. It doesn't matter what you say. I've been there over and over again. I've had people look at my fucking Twitter icon, which is a Gadsden flag. They don't know anything about history, so they don't know what the Gadsden flag even is. They just know that was associated with the sect of the Republican Party today, but they don't know that that's from the 1770s. And it was the flag, fucking newsflash of the American Revolution. They'll look at that and be like, he's anti-gay.
Yeah.
And he doesn't believe in the rights of women, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what are you possibly talking about? Don't you realize that A, you're character assassinating me, and B, that just doesn't fall in line with the things that I've actually said and done with my life? Make a lot of assumptions about people that way. And as someone who is on the receiving end, it's not easy being a conservative or a Republican in a very liberal field, in a very liberal place like Twitter, but I stand by my convictions. And you know what? I know people appreciate that. Yeah, and I've been told, and I've said this before, people in this industry all the time come up to me, people you would know, come up to me in this industry, big names, small names, people at all different studios, and thank me. And it's not an uncommon thing to do because they know that someone out there is speaking for them.
I think to your point, and to sort of illustrate that perfectly with you, is that you're not the traditional evil Republican, right? You're not that sort of demonized figure in the Republican Party. You are a fiscal conservative. You're more libertarian. And you're pretty liberal when it comes to everything else social.
Yeah,
and
but this is spiraling off into a different sect now. This is a whole different topic of conversation. This is very much what we were talking about before.
To draw back to my original point, though, is that yes, but that duality can't exist in one person. It's when you start peeling off those super stupid, superficial levels that you can start understanding that people are more than just one word or one phrase to define them.
Right.
That's all I'm getting.
Okay.
It's not bad to be a Republican, but you can be a Republican and still believe in gay marriage.
100%. Colin proves that every day. That's the problem. But the Republicans and the Democrats fucked it all up for themselves, and they are laying in the bed they made.
Well, see, I don't think it's that. I think it's so many different things. You're right.
I'm talking about the top of the party.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the presidential spectrum.
It's because they have
Mitt Romney's a straight
base.
shooter, awesome dude. He seems like, and then he goes out and he has to be the fucking waving the Republican flag, and I hate gay marriage. And I hate this and all this other stuff.
But the question is then why? And this is the thing, just the duality of the debates that are going on. The Democrats have a debate with a really reasonable moderator in Anderson Cooper, who I think is a very smart man, and they have a reasonable conversation for 2 hours. And everyone looks at that and they're like, oh, that's interesting. Look at the adults talk. Now let's look at the Republicans, these fucking idiot backwater assholes that are stupid fucking morons and don't know anything. And I'm like, is that really in your mind the way you see these people?
No, but it's
you
hard.
see people that went to Harvard and Oxford and all these things as idiots. Are you out of your mind?
They try. It's hard because they're so obviously placating and playing to their base, right? And so they'll start answering questions, and you're like, oh, that's an actual intelligent answer, and then they'll just shoehorn some random shit in there where you're like, oh, and great, the Democrats do the same thing, by the way, but the Republicans make it all so obvious. It's so obvious when they just start talking about God, and you're like, that wasn't even what the topic was.
Sure, but the point I'm trying to make is that there's even optical problems with the way that these things are perceived by both sides. That the Democrats aren't or I'm not saying the Democrats because I think that's wrong and that feeds into what I'm saying, but people that are throwing these kinds of words around are not intellectually honest or just smart enough to realize that a lot of that has to do with moderating, that a lot of that shit has to do with the way that they just look at Donald Trump and pit everyone against Donald Trump and then Donald Trump against everyone, and that this guy's just a disruptive figure, and that they look at the entire field of 15 people and they're like, all these people are idiots, none of them can be president. Yeah, Marco Rubio's a real dumb guy. Yeah, no doubt about that. Jeb Bush, real dummy. Like, is that really the way you see them? You see your opposition as cartoon characters like that? Because I don't see my opposition as cartoon characters. Someone asked me about Bernie Sanders and why I'm so fixated on him. I'm like, because I find him fascinating. That's why I'm fixated on him. I don't disrespect him. I think he's fucking wrong. I think he's got delusions if he thinks that he can do anything he wants to do in the United States. But I follow him and I'm intellectually interested in what he has to say, so I understand where the other side comes from. I watch the Democratic debate just as riveted as I am by the people that are saying the things that I agree with. And I don't look at all of the Republicans on the field and think that all of them belong there. I don't like Mike Huckabee. I don't like Santorum. I don't like Cruz.
To be fair, Jeb Bush does come off a little doofy sometimes.
I don't agree at all. Jeb Bush is a smart guy. Jeb Bush should have been the one that was president. And everyone knows that. And Jeb Bush,
the wrong one.
And and that's always going to be the argument, is that Bush, W. Bush just outflanked him at a time when everyone thought it was going to be Jeb Bush. And it's too late for him now. But to just walk up to your opposition and just think the worst of them because of certain viewpoints that they hold, and maybe they just hold principled viewpoints, like they have nothing valuable to say, that's really the way you look at the other side. I can't imagine walking through my life like that. People have said to me that they would never be friends with the Republicans, that they don't know conservatives, they don't agree with them, and I'm like,
down to that reductive messaging, man.
And that's what I'm
exactly
saying, because I don't look at things like that. If I didn't have liberal friends or Democratic friends, I wouldn't be able to talk to most of my family and then most of my friends. Because I'm able to separate those things and understand that even if you have these viewpoints that, like, or Bernie Sanders, he's a socialist, he and I don't see eye to eye on anything, yet I know that his heart's probably in the right place, and I'm sure that we could probably find a middle ground somewhere, and I don't have to call him a fucking kooky communist or a socialist and all those kinds of things, the way my side are called racist and sexist and bigots, when most of us are not. And that's the point I'm trying to make, and that's where this political correctness and these reductive arguments come down to, where you just dehumanize the other side, and then the media picks it up, and then it's just this whole furor of just nonsense. When we want to talk about the issues too, and we don't like our own cartoon characters any more than you do, But maybe when you attack someone like Donald Trump and you call everyone racist, and he's the only one sticking up for you, maybe you understand why a third of the fucking Republican political apparatus supports him. You know what I mean? Because at least someone's sticking up for them. And these are the kinds of things that really bother me. And like, we can't have normal conversations in this country because everyone has something to fucking bitch and complain about, instead of getting down to the nitty gritty of what we actually need to talk, and maybe not dehumanizing each other and not calling each other racist and bigots and sexist and anti-intellectual and stupid and climate deniers and religious fanatics and all these kinds of things. I don't throw those fucking things at the other side. I could easily call them fucking financially brain dead. I can call them socialists. I can call them all those kinds of things, but I choose not to, because I know their heart's in the right place, and we just got to figure it out.
But that's the thing, is like, people in your party do, just like the people in the Democratic Party call Republicans names. That's the whole problem, and where I go back to with the spectrum is what I'm saying. You can't tell me that Republicans aren't calling Democrats bleeding heart liberals and want to give out too much welfare and all these other different things, that they're only in it for the minorities, and that's why they keep winning. I mean, that's the whole problem.
I do believe that, but I do think that part of it is reactionary. I do think
that's the whole point.
I do think that the fucking flame throwing is way more pronounced on the left, and I think that it's just accepted, and the Republicans just sit there and take it. Like, by and large, just take it. That's why Donald Trump's so appealing to people, because he doesn't. And it's like so obvious why people like him. Like, everyone's like, it's not about policy. No, he can say whatever the fuck. Like, he could say he wants to fuck a goat tomorrow and his points will go up 5 points because he just said something.
Yeah.
That's, of course, a throwback to an early Game Over.
Oh yeah, I know you're with it.
Anyway, like, we will have way more political conversations, I'm sure, on Game Over Greggy show than this. But understand that, I'm interested in hearing all sides of the argument, and I know what it's like to be shouted down, and I know what it's like to be reduced to a cartoon character or whatever. And frankly, I think it's easy for people to do it on the other side, because I don't think they have that experience. Not on social media, not in this industry. They don't know. They don't know that it takes a little bit of braveness and a little bit of boldness to just continue to be beat up like I've been beat up for years, and just continue to do it because I believe in what I say. And then I know that there are a lot of people that I speak for. And when people stop me at conventions, people that work for big companies and big publishers and big developers, names you might know, and they're like, yo, man, thanks for saying what you say. Thank you. You're right. And they move on with their lives or whatever, because they at least have someone speaking for them.
But do you feel like you're speaking for, what does that mean?
I
don't think you speak for the Republican Party. I think you speak for yourself.
I do speak for myself.
No, values people share. I'm not trying to fight you. I'm asking for this, because this topic has gone into very different sections, and I believe we're breaking it at around the 116 mark based on the nod Kevin gave me. So I mean, like, for what we're now talking about, I want to make sure if you're trying to make a callback to the first part of your topic, then we're making sense.
No, sure.
You're talking about people are coming up and talking to you about being financially conservative, liberal.
I stick up for those people that say, like, that are sick of being bullied for their beliefs, that are sick of being that are sick of being reduced into these caricatures or fucking character assassinated because of the way they feel. Of all of these kinds of things, those are the people that I'm speaking to, and those are the people that I think appreciate getting out of that echo chamber. The gaming industry is just, especially with games journalism, is just one vanilla fucking echo chamber of all of the same opinions. No one fights with each other, no one disagrees with each other, and then there are certain outliers like me, and I've always been an outlier, and I'm proud of that because I think I have something valuable to say to people, and I think I have a valuable point of view, and I really try my hardest not to just reduce the other side to a caricature. I think the other side, the far left of the other side, reduces itself to a caricature every time they complain about fucking gender diversity in a video game. Every time they complain about there's not enough Hispanic people or white people or black people, whatever, in this movie. Every time it happens, every movie that comes out, every game that comes out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Instead of just being like, what makes sense for the story? And maybe the people that made this game aren't racist, and maybe they're not sexist. And that's really what I'm speaking to most, is that if we want to have a game with an all-female cast, that's great. If it makes sense for the story, maybe I'll play it. I mean, that sounds fascinating. Just like I'm fascinated by Horizon's female character, but maybe we shouldn't read the worst into people because of the decisions they make.
But see, now we're back to the other topic, where it's the core of that argument, and is again the center section of it. The people who want to flog some game developer or company or writer for having an all-white cast, or attack them for you're only putting people in for diversity. In the middle, there is a group that had there was another group that said, with reason, I'm a girl and I play games and I'd love to see more women in games. And that did dawn on a developer. Maybe my next game I'll make it a female thing. And they did, and it was great. You know what I mean?
And is that a reasonable way to deliver your message? Yes.
And that's what I just want to talk about.
Right.
There isn't, knowing you well, it's not that you're saying there shouldn't be any of this. There's the reasonable middle, as always, where the good things do come from it, but now it's getting to these extremes and it's not making sense anymore. Yeah, and it is just becoming one giant dogfight.
The only danger is because you can't get popular by not operating on the extremes, right? It's very easy. It's way more easy to represent that sort of ridiculously loud voice on that side and be heard than it is to actually have a fair and balanced conversation with people. And that's the danger of it, right? Is that people realize that if you can be the extreme voice, then you can get people to rally behind you. And it's dangerous. And that's what I think you see a lot of the times with, especially, with progressive thinking, is like, I'm going to go so far left that that it's very dangerous for anyone to take me on. And you can become a spokesperson for that. It's interesting. I don't know. I would say, because I would say as far as out there as you think you are, you're not. I think, Colin, you're more fair and balanced than you probably give yourself even credit for. But I do, not to take anything away, I do think people I see it all the time. People do give you a lot of shit on Twitter for various things. And I think it's good. And I think you should be out there. But part of the reason why you are so popular is because you do represent a very pointed perspective, much more so than myself. I tend to be more middle of the road on things, largely out of fear, as that I don't necessarily think that I'm as educated in a lot of these topics as I should be. So I don't speak. But I digress.
Yeah, I think that I respect and appreciate that fear. I had to let it go. And I did. I let it go a long time ago. And I used to be much more of a flamethrower than I am now. But there is something to be balanced and look at things both sides. And I just try to approach things not from a party lens. I don't want to be.
Big Kev, the door's ringing.
I don't want to be reduced, and like we always joke about it, and people in our audience joke about it, but putting people in a box, whatever. It's like, or putting me in a box, like when oh my God, Portillo, shut the fuck up.
Hey, come here.
When I see a topic, I don't look at it through a political lens. I look at it like, what makes the most sense for the consistency of my own stance, my own viewpoint. That's how I came to the gay marriage conclusion. That's how I came to the pro-choice conclusion. I used to be pro-life. That was one thing that I was pro-life not too long ago, 5 years ago. And I looked at it and I was like, this isn't consistent with Republican values, really. Because what's consistent with Republican values is to say, do what you want to your own body. Now, there must be limitations. We've talked about this on Conversation with Colin. I don't think there should be abortions probably after 14 weeks or so. But I think that you have to give women a way out. It's their body. The baby cannot survive without the woman. This is a consistent argument, right? And so I was like, it's not a popular thing to be pro-choice and Republican, but there are pro-choice Republicans, and I'm one of them. Because that's, so I know, and it's the same thing with fiscal policy or any of those kinds of things. You got to approach it on a case-by-case basis. I just think that there's these whack jobs on both sides, and I think that are most pronounced on, frankly, the progressive left, that really do believe that the world should be scrubbed and sterile, that there should be no offensive things being said about anyone, no jokes, nothing funny, complete and utter diversity in gender and ethnicity in terms of every piece of fiction, or they're not going to be satisfied. And I think that's fucking comical. I mean, to the point, like, I think that's comical, you know? And then the other side that are just fucking crazy reactionaries, and I don't agree with them either. But yeah, it's one of those things. I guess I want to talk about this, and I guess I got so passionate and heated about it, and I am so passionate and heated about it, and you've not heard the last of it from me, is because I am just sick of being lambasted.
Well, here's my question.
Anti-poor, anti-gay, anti-this, anti-that, and I'm like, fuck you. You know what I mean? I am none of those things. Because I align with a certain group of people, or because I have a certain group of people. Like, does every Democrat agree with each other? Why do I have to? Why to be labeled as something? I have to agree with everyone. We all agree with each other.
So here's my question. You're stumbling into my question. Why pick? Why say you're a Republican if you don't agree with them on certain issues? Why not? I'm an independent. I don't vote in either primary. I don't care. I'll get to the point and then pick the lesser of two evils, who I agree with the most, who checks the most boxes.
Well, that's an easy question to answer, is because I align with the most of the topics that are most important to me. And you talk about voter topics, right? And things that people vote for. Some people vote for social issues. Some people vote for fiscal issues or military issues. For the things that matter most to me, which is scale of government, spending, and taxes, I agree 100% with the Republican Party. Mm-hmm. And in fact, maybe even more extreme than the mainstream of the Republican Party in those respects. And I think that I have a choice. I can either retreat and become an independent, which is fine, but you have no power. You have no political power as an independent at all. You have political power in terms of the sway of the general elections, but you have no choice in candidates. You have nothing. You have nothing to say. And I think that's a powerless place to be. If you want to be there, and a lot of people are there, 20% of the population or so, then that's fine. But my whole thing is like, I'm just going to change this motherfucker. I'm going to change people's opinions about what this party can be and what it is and what younger people look at and what's important to them. And we will change the party just as the party has changed many times. These parties are not static. You know what I mean? The Democrats were the ones that held slaves. The Democrats were the ones that supported Jim Crow. The Democrats were the ones that started Vietnam and Korea. The Democrats were the ones that did all of these things, and they managed to change their party into what it is today. So why can't we change our Republican Party into being into morphing into what we want it to be as well? Mm-hmm. The Republicans freed the slaves. You know, the Republicans ended those wars. The Republicans wanted nothing to do with those wars. You know, it's like things have changed, and so they can change again, and they will change again. And I've talked about it in the past where I need to be engaged with trying to change the system, or I'm just like, what right do I have to complain? If I'm not as engaged as possible, I have no right to complain to the extent that I do. And
see, it's always for me is the thing with it, right? Is like, it's the vote with your wallet mentality with that. I wouldn't align myself with either of these parties because I have so many problems with each one of them. You know what I mean? And like what you're saying is interesting, and I'm sure you have a completely different perspective. You live it every day. People attack you on Twitter. They say mean things about you on the internet, right? But like for me, I see the mud getting thrown both ways. I feel like I see the caricatures, the cartoon versions of each side both ways as much as ever. Fox News yelling about the Democrats or whatever. Everybody on MSNBC saying something over here about Republicans. The vice versa of it. You know what I mean? And so for you're like, is this really what people think of the Republican Party? It's like, yeah, when their big message is God and they're going to shut down Planned Parenthood, yeah, fuck those guys. Yeah, now I can turn around and tell you why fuck the Democrats as well. Don't get me wrong.
But I mean, that's another character, is the Planned Parenthood thing. Like, those Planned Parenthood videos are at best questionable.
I'm not even talking about the videos, just so I don't know.
Well, but that's why they want to shut down Planned Parenthood. Is because of all the videos with the selling of fetal material and stuff like that. Yes. And everyone just brushes that off. Oh, these are doctored and all that. No, they're not. You know what I mean? Yeah, maybe they like are selectively releasing, but the doctor said what they said in them. And my whole stance is like, yeah, maybe Planned Parenthood doesn't need to be funded. Here's the thing. We'll just give the money to someone else to do what they're doing. You know, like, that makes me a sexist? Because I'm like, maybe this organization doesn't deserve the federal government's money if this is what they're doing. Maybe we should find a women's health organization that can help the women and not deal in the selling of baby parts. I don't know. That's just my opinion on that. But, so that's exactly what I'm talking about, is that like, there's always a reason why I feel a certain way. Now I know a lot of people, just go along with party lines on both sides, and that's just never the way I've been. I've just never been that way. I don't support these big war efforts that the Republicans, this war machine kind of mentality. I don't support that. But there's a lot of fighting factions within the Republican Party, and I just support and am really aligned with one of 4 or 5 of them. And is the party probably going to self-destruct? I assume so, but I want to see it through to the end. And then we see what comes out of the ashes in 2020, 2024 if the Republicans lose this election, because it's going to be bad if they lose this election again. For the party, not maybe for the country. Maybe that's what people want. That's what they're going to get. Yeah. And I've been guilty of characterizing and using characters more in a joking way of the other side too. Of course I have. I mean, I love that picture that I just got pictures of that girl holding the Bernie Sanders sign where it says, "I don't understand economics" with an exclamation point. I think it's like one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But so I've done those things too. But generally, in my heart, I have a lot of respect for the other side, and I just know that people don't feel that way about me. Someone in this industry once told me, and I won't name names or whatever, but someone in this industry that works in journalism, that's a pretty well-known name, told me that they would never hire or work with a Republican. So just consider that next time, you think we're all bad and evil people, is that maybe we're just like you, and I just try to see the other side, and my mind's always malleable and always open to change,
that's what I like about you.
And I just refuse to we might characterize or use caricatures of the other side sometimes, but I'll never want to straight up demonize them. I want to talk about them and talk about their ideas and why their ideas suck.
But that's the whole thing about you is that you're, and I don't mean Republican, I mean political. I feel like you're the rare breed of that. At least the one who has a platform who can speak and do all these different things. I feel like you look at Bill O'Reilly, you look at Jon Stewart, you look at all these different things. Like, you know what I mean? There's all these different exceptions where that's not what it is. It is the other side is bad. We are the good guys. And that's why the country is completely fucked and nothing gets done and no one believes in it. The government.
Well, I don't really much believe in the government either, but I just feel like we can't have a defeatist attitude. We have to try to change it. We have to try to change it. Hurling bombs at each other. Like, we've never been this. The fact is, we've not ever been this divided since the 1860s, the 1850s. Like, we've never been this divided. Where, like, I really feel like this country, most people in most states in this country would be totally fine with splitting this place into two at this point. Like, I really do believe that. And I'm like, that's such a defeatist attitude. Like, we all have and want the same things. Why do we hate each other so much? And why do people hate me so much? And I'm not talking about me as Colin Moriarty. I'm talking about me as, like, my political alignment. Like, why do you hate me? When I'm a patriot. And I believe in this place, and I believe in this country, and I believe in each other, and even the people on the other side. I want to bring them along. When Hillary Clinton's talking about one of her favorite, one of the best enemies she ever made was the Republican Party, I'm like, well, that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's an interesting thing to say. That won't come.
That won't come
haunt you.
A lot of things are going to get done if she gets elected, right?
Yeah, Obama won 9% of the Republican vote in 2008 because he was, including me, I voted for Obama in 2008 because he talked about bringing us together, and he was totally full of shit. But I believed him at the time of, like, post partisan is what he used to talk about, like moving past the divide and coming together. And of course, again, he was completely full of shit. But I believed in that message, and I thought that message was quite uplifting, and that's why I voted for him, because I was like, I believe that he doesn't hate me, Yeah. And I look at the candidates now, and I look at the way people talk about my side now, and maybe the way my side talk about the other side now, and it's just like, there's just hatred. It's just hatred.
Exactly. It's pure hate. That's the problem.
And it really is. It's deep, unabiding, real hatred.
Yeah, totally. And that's, I think, what drives so many people away, and why it's so interesting that you stand there trying to fix this. Whereas I think, again, we're back to this argument I made on PlayStation or PS I Love You, right? Of, like, there's the core audience that you're in and really cares about this, and then there's everyone on the outside looking in who's like, it's fucking waste of time.
Yeah, and both sides are guilty of it. Sometimes I say things that are too democratic, and I'm called a rhino or a fake Republican. Sometimes, like when I went on about Bernie Sanders on my Facebook page the other day and saying, like, I watched this interview.
I'm calling you the rhino.
Yeah, the rhino. I kind of like
Call him
it.
the rhino Moriarty.
Ryan Sandberg?
And I went on about Bernie Sanders. I was like, he's a really interesting man. I'm really fascinated by him. I just don't understand, like, his tax platform's ridiculous. He's going to tax everyone. He's not going to tax the rich. He's admitted it before, blah, blah, blah. Just people jump down my fucking throat, And then I go back at them because I present myself respectfully. But if you want to come at me like that, then we will play. We will have a dance. But
in 4 years, you can run for president and you'll fix everything.
I wish.
We'll vote you in. The best friends will vote you in.
Anyway, thanks for dealing with my rant. I mean, that was longer, and I didn't intend to. That was way longer than I thought it was going to be. But
the headline of this topic is going to be Colin is really passionate about
two.
things.
So this is
the second topic
one?
is going to be Colin's really passionate about things. I think people are going to like that.
I'll just be quiet for the fourth topic because I talk too much.
No, you did good. No, please. I didn't want to talk at all today. Nick.
Oh, I get the
take
fourth
me
topic?
home. Yeah, yours is light.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one.
Bring me back, Nick. I want
This
something
topic
to
comes
say.
from our good friends over on Patreon. Justin.
/kind of funny. You can go there and support us to get your topic on the show as well.
Like Justin did, who says, hey guys, big fan. Who would have a better Freaky Friday? Colin and Greg or Nick and Tim? What would your days be like when you switch places? Now, are you familiar with Freaky Friday?
Yes.
I am. Yes.
Okay.
Good.
So
Well, if the audience is,
if the audience isn't, it's trading. I like the one better, the Judge Reinhold, Kevin Arnold one better.
Not trading places. What the hell was that one?
Shit, I can't remember.
You talking about Big?
There was a bunch of movies that came out in
I'm
like the
talking
late
about the
80s, early
Lindsay Lohan
90s when about body swapping. And there was one with Judge Reinhold and Fred Savage where he becomes his dad and his dad becomes him.
But that's the same idea.
yeah.
Consciousness is shifts. So Nick's brain goes into
We
Tim's
both
body.
plug something in at the same time and like.
Yeah, exactly. So now before we get into what the days would be like, because I want to hear that, I want to go one by one and have the vote. So who has the better Freaky Friday? Which pair?
Better
Easily
Freaky
me and
Friday?
you.
I'm pretty sure it's us.
Easily
you?
me and you.
I don't know. I don't really feel like anyone has an advantage.
For
to be honest.
sure, for sure, these two idiots.
You two
You and
basically
I
live the
would
exact
freak
same
out
life.
about it, and we would sit in a room and try to get it back, and we'd trace it, and we'd write about it and do all this stuff. They would immediately high five and go fuck each other's friends and girlfriends.
I would try. The first thing I would do if I woke up in your body is I would text you and I'd be like, Tim, work your magic and get my wife to send me a naked picture. So that when I'm back in your body, I have that naked picture of my wife. Because she just
I'm
will
pretty
not
sure
do
I
it.
could get it.
Oh, I guarantee
I'm
you. You
pretty
can probably get it
sure.
right now. Text her right now. And see if she'll send you. She'll probably say a little nip slip. I think you and I would have, well, first of all, I would love looking forward to your life, to waking up around like 1. Eating whatever the first thing was that popped into my brain.
Burritos,
and making
probably.
Kevin go with me.
Yes.
It'd be nice to have a slave because Kevin is
You can
basically,
do all those things now in your body.
That's true, but at the same time, I have all these. I have all these things that I've placed on myself. All these like weird rules and constraints. That, like no, I can only have. You have to eat a certain way,
half a
work
banana.
out. Not do bad things in my body. Tim doesn't have those. Tim is a young, virile man,
No fucks given.
and I would hope that it would be at a certain time where your girlfriend was visiting. Because I'd get freak nasty with that.
Good.
Heartbeat.
Good,
Heartbeat.
yeah.
And I would, because I'd be like, I would call Danielle first, and I'd be like, hey, babe, I'm in Tim's body.
Tim, why are you calling me babe?
No, she would know it was me, because I'd be like, yeah,
She
I
would
would,
know
I would
instantly.
tell her to chillax, and she'd be like, Nick? Well, you're the only person that uses that stupid term. And I'd be like, look, I'm in Tim's body. No big deal. I don't know how I'm going to get back, but
I'm in Tim's body.
I'm in Tim's body.
The first thought your wife would have is, I knew this would happen.
Yeah, she would
Like,
have-
you
she would
guys,
have.
you're leaving me. You and Tim are going to go get married somewhere.
Yeah. But I think it'd be fascinating. I mean, say we're in each other's bodies for a weekend. You get to live, and you get to respect. You'd have so much more respect for me, I think, come Monday.
No.
Because you were like, Nick, I didn't fucking think it was possible to go back to Target that many times.
But
we
we go to
forgot.
Target a lot. I don't think you know my life that well.
Oh my God. I have like Target mapped out. I know all the Targets. I know the city Target. I know the other one. I know where everything is. I know where the Lar bars are. It's important.
See, my thing, there's a lot of stuff that I'd want to experience as Nick, like having to go to the bathroom as much as he does. I would just like want
What
to
are
know what
these
that feels
shits
like.
like?
But it's not even so much
Lovely.
the need to go to the bathroom. It's that like that moment where he's like, I need to do it right now. Because I usually don't have that. Like I had to go pee earlier in the show. I drank way too much. Way too much. I usually don't do that before shows. And I was waiting for the topic to end. Like I was trying to be respectful. But
it went into overtime.
but then I was like, it reached a point I couldn't wait. But it's like with Nick, it's just like when it happens,
every
it's like
30
it's
minutes.
fucking. I gotta go. I just gotta leave
really
and just start
is.
this new life. But I also
Start
want
this new life.
I want to understand like just what's going on in your head. Like I don't know if I'd experience that or if I'd just be me in your body.
I don't think you'd have my certain sensibilities about different things, but you definitely get a little glimpse into my life, which I think would be fascinating. Just in that you've never been married before.
No.
And that comes with a certain set of criteria and circumstances that you have to adhere to. Namely, you're going to Target every weekend. You're not going to want to go to Target every weekend. You don't get to go to
You don't get to
Target
walk
and
through
then
the
go to the
toys.
Best Buy and hang out in like the
Yeah.
electronics section or like the game section. You got to make sure that you know the difference between all the tides. Just all the tides. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let it fall because it doesn't matter because the tides are more important than anything.
I got
I get that. The moment that I have to go to a Target and I'm not allowed or supported
Right.
to go to the Lego section, I'm gonna be really
It's
upset.
not happening this time.
And I have a feeling if I was with your wife, she wouldn't want to
No,
see the
you're gonna go
Legos.
because you got to go to Trader Joe's afterward.
Yeah, I don't like.
So you got to
Trader
make sure
Joe's.
you got to Trader Joe's. You got to make sure you get in the parking lot. It's annoying. She's not going to drive the car, so you have to make sure you're the one that parks, which adds
I
to
don't
it.
like parking.
It's bad. It's bad. But I think you'd appreciate it from the opposite perspective too, which is that obviously my wife's cool, so you get to hang out with her.
Yeah.
You get the intimacy of that, what I call, and this is a very different thing that you may or may not have in your life, the couch time, the chill couch time,
I mean, that's
where it's
kinda
just
my
you
life.
and your girl existing on the couch, not talking to each other. It's fantastic. Maybe she's got a book. Maybe she's got a Kindle. Maybe you're
Maybe
playing
she's
Metal
staring
Gear.
at the wall.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Sometimes she stares at the ceiling while I watch Arrow. Not a big deal. I think it'd be more fascinating to be you than anyone else, though, because you're young.
But what I'd be
you have lots
interested
of
in
sex.
is like I would love to the weekend's over, we kind of switch back, and then it'd be like, so Nick, how was it? Like, I want to know what you tell me. Like, what adventures did you have? Because I know you'd bang my girlfriend. I know it. It's just that's a fact.
100%.
So, but it's
100%.
When in Rome.
the first thing is you just kind of like jump into it. You'd go into graphic.
Would you bang my
graphic
wife
detail.
though?
I mean,
we're talking about a weekend,
this
so
is like-
Saturdays is usually when I get it. So
It's getting real now.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna not do it if she
Yeah.
wants it.
Yeah.
Like if it's
but
normal.
you're banging her.
I like how the
it's so
first thing
weird.
both of you did though was tell the wife that the body switches happen, and she's like, "Well, fuck, you're going to Target and you are fucking me." Like that's just she's committed.
My wife's pretty pragmatic. She needs to get those weekend errands done, and sex is one of those things. So she's gonna.
So weekend errand for your
Yeah,
wife.
you know, you're
Sex with Nick.
It's pretty much how it goes. It's Target, Trader Joe's weekend errand. Maybe see a movie.
I love this though.
Super
This
duper burger.
this would be good. I don't think our lives are that different.
No,
though.
they're really not.
I just-
Plus, we probably
I-
see each other that weekend anyway because we have to
Exactly.
film something.
We're doing some. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you for sure do 11
The
sex
only
stuff
difference
with
would be I would finally like talk more than you do. Like I would just
That's
like
fair.
make sure I keep interrupting you as much as
That's
humanly
important.
possible.
Then
Well,
you
that's
wink-
my-
you
Just
do
to
the
play
wink
your
at the
part.
camera. Wink at the
That's my
camera.
Yeah, and then I'd wink at the camera a lot.
Yeah.
You're so good at that. This is funny. This topic's funny because a long time ago, I don't know if you remember this, Nick. We wrote a short for IGN that never happened. It was me and Alfredo where this happens and no one noticed the switch happened.
Yeah.
Because we're just the same person.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's what I'm saying with Colin and Greg. So if you guys switched bodies, you'd wake up, probably play some PlayStation.
Wait, so I want to be clear.
That's
I'm
pretty
going to
much
wake
it.
up in Greg's body.
Yeah.
With my consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay.
You probably wouldn't do it. I mean,
We'd
you might
walk into
to
each other's
Sprouts.
rooms and trade Vitas, so we had the right Vitas still, so we're still earning the right trophies.
And that'd be it.
about
No,
That's pretty much.
That's pretty
After
much
that,
it.
it's checked in. Every other PlayStation in the house has both profiles on it.
I mean, I guess if I was in Greg's body, I'd have to, look down and marvel at how small a penis he has.
And I'd look down and marvel how large mine was.
Just
This
enjoy it.
Italian,
Just take it
Irish hog I got here.
What was it called?
This special blend.
The Event Horizon?
The
Call it the
Event
Event Horizon.
I guess I'd go in there.
Was it
I'd
the
have
Event
to-
Horizon or the Singularity?
It was the Event
The
Horizon.
Event Horizon.
I'd go in there and have to slow jerk it just to keep it
Yeah,
in shape.
just-
I don't want to return it to Colin in bad shape.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be weird though? Because you would essentially be jacking off your friend at that
No,
point.
because you're experiencing and feeling it.
Yeah,
If
but
I was
still-
jacking, if
I'd be
I was
looking at
jacking
Tim
off
in the mirror.
this
'cause
dick
you know,
and all the
sometimes you flex when you're in
sensations
the
were
mirror.
going
You're
to
like,
Colin, that's weird.
You know when you flex when you're in the mirror?
yeah, you're in the mirror. You're looking at yourself in the mirror. You're trying to get that tricep as fucking taut as humanly possible, and you're just beating that thing like it's the fifth round of fucking UFC title bout. But I'd be looking at you instead of me. It'd be weird. I would be weirded out. I would be weirded
I've
out.
never looked at myself masturbate. I just
you
want,
gotta
I
do
want
it.
that on record.
You gotta do
Oh,
it.
I look at myself and I'm 100% exclusively
Really?
masturbate looking at myself in the mirror.
Oh, all the time.
No, not really.
I believed it. I really
I
did.
did too. I did too.
I'm so attracted to myself. I want
No,
to put it in
I
my own ass.
assume you're just one of those guys who's you're multitasking. You're in there. You're looking, thinking about your haircut, what you want to do with the beard.
I'm just thinking about putting it in my own butt,
Oh.
which is weird and not possible.
Well,
What would I do? I don't know. I would be interested. I don't know. I mean,
we
I
would immediately walk in the living room and talk about it. And like, I was gonna ride it out. I guess. Is there you think there's a time limit? What did we do yesterday that was out of the ordinary?
Is there
You
a
know what I mean?
lightning strike?
Yeah.
There's always a lightning strike.
Yeah, I feel like just the rules need to be set up. I mean, Nick
Well,
just
who
know
knows?
the
Yeah, you
rules.
don't know.
We're set. We just know
Yeah,
it's
it'd be
like
fine. It'd be-
you're down, I'm down. All right,
Oh,
cool.
it'd be
Let's
so
do it.
fun.
We're doing it.
It'd be so
We're
fun.
fine.
Yeah.
And we'd know what would happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would just sit around. We'd do the normal thing.
yeah, I'd be.
Probably go to hard water.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that. I guess you guys are right. It wouldn't be that interesting. I thought it would be more interesting than it would be, but it's not. I've known Greg for so long and so intimately, and I don't mean that in a funny, sexual way. I mean, I just know Greg so well that it's like I don't know that it would be that weird. I mean, I'm sure it would be very weird in many respects. Being a slightly overweight 6'3" person would be a little different for me, but as opposed to a slightly overweight 6'0" person. Not being athletic at all, not being able to move and lurch around. One of the funny things that one of the funny things about Greg, that one of my favorite things about Greg is I know when it's him coming in. Well, there's not many people in this apartment, but I mean, Greg walking up the stairs, it sounds like a fucking giant is walking up the stairs, like a 1,500-pound
I
fucking
got tree trunks, man.
giant.
I got tree trunk legs.
It's unbelievable. I could be in my room, in my bed, door closed, sliding door open, so there's ambient noise coming in, playing a game or watching TV, and I hear him like clear as day coming up, and like it's so it's so ridiculous. It reminds me of like there was this 80s. I don't remember what it was. There was this 80s like show that I used to rent on VHS at the library that was like took place in like this vivid blue house. and there was a giant that lived in the house with this woman or something, and he would walk up and down the stairs in a very similar. I'm trying to think. Someone out there is going to know exactly what I'm talking about. I can ask my siblings, and they would know. And that's what I always think about. I'm like, Jesus Christ, Greg sounds like he's 800 pounds and 7'7" walking up the stairs. So I'd like to get that experience as well. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to have not be second fiddle to Portillo. You know, that would be interesting for once. You know, Portillo would have a lot of
newfound respect for me. Well,
Portillo has a lot of downtime, and he and I hang out, but he's out like nobody's business when Greg's around.
Yeah, of course.
So it'd be interesting to be like, I'm the guy, I'm the dude.
Mm-hmm. Would you have to get the question for you though? Is how hard would it be to get used to all the salad that you'd have to eat?
Well, that's two things. There's a lot
Greg.
of greens being eaten, and I also have to deal with the ego. Now, it's not clear whether or not Greg's ego comes along with me or if he retains his ego.
I think you have to fake it. You have to fake it for a while because otherwise people would know. People would be aware.
And be on it. Ooh, see, that's a whole new layer to this. Are we trying to trick everyone else?
Well, see, again, I think that's where you and I would be totally fine because as similar as these two guys are, I mean, you could pass for me in a heartbeat.
Yeah, we could totally
just constantly try to have sex with my wife, and she will not. It'd be like a blitzkrieg strategy. She just won't have time to think anything differently. It'll be like normal, just normal.
But I mean, like, do you think we could do the show? You guys switched, we switched. Do you think that we could, like, the audience, we can get away with a 2-hour show?
Up, really? For sure, the audience would know something.
Like my topic today is I read an interesting graphic novel that I wanted to discuss with you about a character. About a man.
And I want you to some political thing I read on Deadspin, and everyone's like, wait a second.
The second you say Gawker, everyone's going to like, Colin?
Not Gawker. What was it? What's the
Deadspin.
Well,
Deadspin
Grantland.
Grantland's dead now, remember?
Deadspin is a Gawker. Blog them.
Yeah. But you knew that's not what he was reaching for.
Yeah, I don't know. It would be easy to do. It would be fun because Greg and I can make fun of each other as we're doing it, like make caricatures of ourselves, which I think is fun.
Yeah, I feel like that would be really fun.
Yeah.
I would be very easy to make. I mean, I'm very easy to make a caricature of probably more than anyone at this table. So
yeah, but not a caricature, sure, but not for a 2-hour podcast. I'd slip up.
Yeah, there's no way.
I wouldn't know anything about hockey. I wouldn't know anything about. I couldn't explain icing. We have somebody.
It's so easy, Greg.
They're like,
it's if you just throw the puck down the ice from behind the red line and it crosses the goal line and no one touches it. It's icing. That's it.
Yeah,
it's
but see, I fell asleep already half in that thing. Like,
why is that tiring you out?
Why is it even a rule? I don't
because the idea is it's the same with offside. You can have people floating in the neutral zone or in the
what about the phantom zone?
In the offensive zone, and they can just. That's why offsides exists. Is the puck must enter the zone before any offensive player. Otherwise, you can just have someone floating there forever.
So the neutral zone is center ice.
It's between the blue lines, the neutral zone,
and the red line is the one at the
red line's the one in the center, okay. And then the goal lines are the ones at the edge.
All right.
So between the blue line and the goal line is a zone, the offensive zone and the defensive zone, depending on who you're playing. The puck must enter the zone before any offensive player does, unless a defensive player brings it into the zone. That's designed to keep scoring down.
What's the goal line?
What's the icing?
I don't really like any of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the GameOverGreggy Show. Each and every week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather on this table, each bringing a random topic of discussion for your amusement. If you like that, head over to patreon.com/kindafunny, where you can toss us a few bucks and get each and every episode early each and every Friday. Don't got no bucks to toss? No big deal, Dr. Jones. Head over to youtube.com/kindafunny, where we're breaking up topic by topic, day by day, until
Temple
we post
of Doom references, huh?
The entire thing on Fridays, video and MP3. Head to itunes.com/kindafunny. Subscribe, rate, do all that stuff so Tim doesn't cry. We don't need to cry anymore, Tim.
I cry easily.
Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.
Everything.
Please.
I do everything
What
hardly.
time is it now? 1:30. Okay, great.
You brushing your teeth there, Colin?
Only 5. Don't sing it,
I love
please
it. I'll
don't
sing it
sing
for you right now. Star Wars, if they should bar wars, please let those Star Wars stay.